Mr. Nurmi, you wanted to make a record.
I do, Your Honor. We see present in the courtroom today here is Mr. Dave Hall. According to what we've seen on television through the HLN network, Mr. Hall provided a video of Mr. Alexander at a shooting range shooting guns. What we would ask, now that he is here, subject to the power of the Arizona courts, that he be asked to provide the court and/or both parties with a copy of said video, that he be ordered to do so by the end of this week.
Mr. Hall, where are you, sir? Do you have any objection to providing a copy?
No objection.
Video to the attorneys?
That's fine.
When can you do that, sir?
Today.
All right, they'll be so ordered. Anything else?
Nothing, Your Honor.
I would note that we would then call him as a rebuttal witness to indicate that Mr. Alexander did not have any handguns and that anytime that he went shooting, he would have to borrow them. Apparently, that's my understanding as to the handgun issue.
In light of that, I suppose there's a request to have him leave the courtroom.
Yes, Your Honor, that would be correct. Of course, we would object to him being called as well because based on what he has said on these television programs, he has been watching the coverage and commentating vigorously on that. So one of certainly an abundance of caution, we would have him excluded from the courtroom. But as of now, we would make a record that we do not believe he is a viable and appropriate witness given his watching of the trial.
Mr. Nurmi, was Mr. Hall under subpoena to your knowledge prior to today?
No, it's not that he violated a subpoena, it's just his viability as a witness because he has watched the trial.
Well, that's certainly something you could cross-examine in the event that he is called. Mr. Hall, in light of the state's indication that you will be called as a witness during the rebuttal case, I'm going to ask that you leave the courtroom. In addition, I'm going to ask that you not watch anything on the media, on television, read anything about the case between now and when you are called as a witness. All right? Thank you, sir. All right, is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Arias, please take a stand. All right, let's bring in the jury.
Please stand for the jury.
I need some water. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Did any of you see or hear anything about this case in the media in the past week? I see no hands. Did anyone attempt to discuss this case with you during the past week or at any time? I see no hands. Ms. Arias, you are still under oath. Do you understand?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, you may continue with cross-examination.
Ma'am, you have a problem with the truth, telling the truth, don't you?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled.
Not typically.
Well, when it's to your benefit, you will lie, right?
Objection argumentative.
The state.
Ma'am, do you remember having a conversation with Detective Flores of the Mesa Police Department back on July 15th of 2008?
Yes.
And this was the day that you were arrested, right?
Yes.
And during that time, you told him something, and let's take a look at it right now. This is Exhibit 378.
in your sleeve.
Hold on, I'm sorry.
Objection, Your
That is
Honor.
always
We approach.
You may. Ladies and gentlemen, you should disregard what you just saw on the screen. You may continue.
Ma'am, this is Exhibit 348.
A lot of details on this case that haven't been released to the public and not even to Travis's family. And those details are known only by us and the person who did it. Okay, and that's one of the reasons I'm here, is because I believe that you know some of these details. And I
Okay.
think you can help us.
I would love to help you in any way that I can.
Okay.
Did you hear yourself telling the detective that you would help them in any way that you could?
Yes.
That's not true, is it?
I don't know. I guess it depends on what help means.
Yes or no? Were you there to help him?
I don't know.
Were you there to tell the truth?
No.
That wasn't the truth, was it? That you were there to help him, was it?
No, that was not the truth.
And in fact, you were there for a different purpose. You were there so that he wouldn't get the truth, right?
No, I was there against my will.
You were there against your will. You didn't have to talk to him, did you?
In hindsight, I
Ma'am,
realized I
yes or
didn't
no?
have to.
Did you have to talk to him? I'm not asking you about hindsight. Isn't it true that you could have chosen not to talk to him, right?
I could have, I think.
And well, you keep saying, I think.
At the time, I didn't know
Ma'am,
that.
I'm asking you. You keep saying, I think. Isn't it true that you had an opportunity to stop talking to him, but you chose to talk to him? Yes or no?
That's true.
And during that time, you told him certain things, right?
Yes.
And in fact, when you spoke to the detective, one of the things that you told him was that you were never there, right?
Yes.
And by there, I mean at the crime scene, right?
Yes.
And you told us previously, well, the reason that I lied to him was because I was ashamed. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes.
Just because you're ashamed, that gives you the right to lie?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
Well, ma'am, the fact that you were ashamed, do you think that justifies what you did?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
No.
And do you think, the other thing that you said, well, you know, I knew it was going to happen, but I was trying to postpone the inevitable. Is that what you were doing when you were lying?
No, because the inevitable had occurred.
Pardon?
The inevitable had already occurred.
The inevitable to you was being arrested then, right?
Yes.
So if being arrested had already occurred, then why didn't you tell the truth?
I was ashamed.
So, which is what you told us before, right?
Before when?
Today. Isn't that the word that we just talked about? You were ashamed?
Yes.
So are you having problems remembering what you said a couple minutes ago?
No.
So you were ashamed, what could you possibly be ashamed of other than that you killed Travis Alexander, right?
That was the biggest part of the shame.
Oh, so there were other things that you were ashamed of more than killing Mr. Alexander then?
Yes.
Objection, mischaracterizes the testimony.
Overruled. Yes?
Yes.
And one of the other things that you were, well, and the reason that you were ashamed of killing Mr. Alexander is because that was going to have some repercussions for you, wasn't there?
Part of the reason, yes.
Again, part of the reason. The other reason was that you were feeling scared, right?
That's part of the reason too.
So if you feel scared, you believe then it's okay to lie.
No, that's not true.
Well, that's what you did though, right?
Yes, it is.
So that's no excuse then, right?
No, it isn't.
And in fact, there's nothing that the detective ever did to get you to say whatever it was that you said at the first interview, right?
Not that I recall.
Well, again, we're with the memory issue. Ma'am, are you having problems remembering what happened back on July 15th of 2008?
No.
So he didn't do anything then, right?
I can't think of any examples.
Right, because he didn't do anything, right?
Anything what?
What are we talking about, ma'am? Are you again having problems understanding what's going on?
Your Honor, if she can't understand his questions, that's...
Overruled, you may answer.
I don't understand his question.
Ma'am, the detective didn't do anything during the interview to cause you to lie, right?
No.
And the detective admonished you or gave you your Miranda warnings, didn't he?
Yes.
And he sat and he talked to you, right?
Yes.
And one of the other things that you told him was that, well, you were told us here in court was that the reason that you lied was because you were thinking about your family, right?
That was one of the reasons.
That's one of the reasons that you told us, right?
Yes.
How is it that, so then what you're telling us, if there's a good reason for it, it's okay to lie?
That's not what I'm telling anyone.
Well, you were saying you were thinking about your family, right?
I did say that.
And that's a good reason or an excuse for you to lie then, right?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, that's the way you try to, didn't you tell us on direct examination that the reason that you lied was because you were thinking in part about your family? Yes or no?
Yes, I said that.
And so then the way you were conveying it to us was that it was okay. That's a good excuse to lie.
If I conveyed it that way, I didn't mean to.
Well, because you still have a family, right?
Yes.
So, but you did say that you were concerned about your family, right?
Yes, I did.
You were concerned about your reputation, right?
Yes, I was.
And so you were thinking more of yourself when you made this statement to this detective, right?
I'm not sure about that.
Well, other than you, who would be sure about your statements?
God?
Well, God's not here. We can't subpoena him, right?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Are you sure that we can't? Because it seems like you're leaving the door open for that.
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
With regard to this issue of this interview, it was for, when you lied, it was to benefit you, right?
It was not for my benefit.
Well, it wasn't hurting you when you were lying, was it? If he would have believed your lie, it would have helped you, right?
It was hurting me to lie.
Pardon?
It was hurting me to lie.
It was very what?
It was hurting me to lie.
So in other words, you're saying that when you're talking to this detective, it was hurting your case to lie?
Yes.
You didn't know that at that time, did you?
No.
You took a chance by lying, didn't you?
I wouldn't call it that.
Well, yes, you did take a chance because you were hoping.
Objection, argumentative.
I don't have a question, honey.
Finish your question.
You were hoping, ma'am, that he would believe what you were saying so that you could then walk out of that jail, right?
No, that's not right.
What other reason would you have to lie other than that it would benefit you?
I assumed that though that video would become public one day and I didn't want my family to see me admitting to something like that.
So, but you admitted it now.
Yes.
Your family's here, right?
Yes.
There are cameras everywhere, right?
Yes.
What has changed other than geography?
Time.
Time has changed. Oh, so a lie back then can be morphed into the truth now because time has changed, right?
Nothing has been morphed.
Well, you're saying that time has made the change that allows you to say something here, right? That you didn't say before.
An internal change, yes.
So you were saying that back then you were geared to lie.
No.
Well, that's what you said. There's been an internal change, right?
Yes.
And so this internal change, before that internal change, back on July 15th of 2008, that was part of the reason why you lied. This internal issue or change or problem, whatever it was, right?
Yes, I had a problem.
And that problem allowed you to lie, right?
I don't know how to answer that.
Why don't you know how to answer it? You're the one that brought this up about your internal problem.
Objection, asked and answered, argumentative.
Restate your question.
This internal issue that you had, that made it, in your mind, okay for you to lie back on July 15th of 2008, right?
I didn't consider it okay.
Well, you didn't consider it bad, did you?
I did.
Well, you kept doing it over and over throughout the whole interview, didn't you?
Yes.
And at no time did you stop the interview and say to yourself, this is not the thing to do, right?
I did.
You did tell him something different during that interview?
No, you said say to yourself, not him.
So, but when you're talking to yourself, no one can hear you, right?
Yes.
And
Unless
it's really
I'm talking
hard
out
for
loud.
people to corroborate what you're thinking if we don't know what you say, right?
Yes.
So we have to take your word that that's what you were thinking internally, right?
Yes. But it
Yes
crossed my
or no?
mind.
Yes or no?
I said yes.
And so with this interview, you then started to talk about whether or not you had been in Arizona, right?
Yes.
You said no, you hadn't been in Arizona, right?
That's right.
That's an absolute lie, right?
Yes.
And the reason that you didn't want to admit to being in Arizona is because you knew that you had killed Travis Alexander, right?
Yes.
You didn't tell that to the detective, right?
That's right.
And additionally, during that whole interview, you gave excuse after excuse as to why you weren't the person that had done this, right?
Yes.
So, safe to say that the whole interview was a lie, right?
Not the whole interview, but anything regarding my presence there on June 4th, yes.
Anything having to do with responsibility in this crime was a lie, correct?
Yes.
And the reason you did that was because it was to your benefit, right?
Objection, asked and answered, Mr.
Overruled.
Testimony.
That's not the reason I did it.
Well, it didn't hurt you, did it, back then? In the moment, it didn't hurt you, did it?
It did.
How did it hurt you in the moment if you had already been charged? It didn't change anything.
What do you mean?
In the moment, at that time, how could it possibly have hurt you since you'd already been charged? It wouldn't have. It didn't change anything, did it?
It did change things to lie.
Well, it didn't change where you were staying, did it?
No.
It didn't change the fact that you were still charged, right?
That's right.
It didn't change anything, the fact that you lied at that point, right?
That's not right.
What did it change, ma'am? Tell me what it changed on that day.
It probably changed my whole future.
I'm not asking about your future. I'm asking what it changed on that day.
Objection, she's answering his question.
Sustained.
Ma'am, the other, you had time to think about
Your
it.
Honor, she should be able to give the time to answer.
Answer what? There's no question before.
Yeah, there was.
I think she answered the question. Continue.
Ma'am, after that interview, you then had another chance to have a conversation with Detective Flores the next day, right?
Yes.
And again, it was a voluntary conversation, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it was the same situation as the day before, right? Where he sat down, he asked you questions, right?
Yes.
On the previous day, he really hadn't given you too much information about the crime, right?
Not too much.
No. And it was actually during the second interview that he started to give you some information, right?
Yes.
And in fact, he showed you some photographs, right?
I think that was the 16th, yes.
Excuse me?
I think that was on the 16th.
why don't you just pull the microphone a little bit closer? So you think that it was on the 16th when he provided you more information, right?
Yes, if I remember correctly.
And one of the things that you said was that somehow you weren't very sophisticated in dealing with law enforcement. You told us that during direct examination, right?
That's correct.
And just because you're not sophisticated or haven't dealt with law enforcement in the past, do you think that that gives you an excuse to lie?
No.
But you did it anyway, right?
Yes, I did.
And you told us that, yes, you were unsophisticated with law enforcement, right?
Yes.
So then what difference does it make if you're unsophisticated with law enforcement in terms of telling the truth or a lie?
I don't know.
But you brought it up on direct examination, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you did it because you wanted people to feel sorry for you, right?
No.
Overruled.
No.
But it didn't have anything to do with the conversation that you had with Detective Flores, did it?
What?
That you were unsophisticated.
I don't understand.
He asked you questions, ma'am, and you gave him answers on July 16th of 2008, right?
That's right.
The fact that you may not have dealt with another police officer before didn't change the fact that he was asking you questions and you were answering, right?
Yes.
It didn't change the fact that he was speaking English to you, right?
That's right.
And you understood what he was asking, right?
Mostly, yes.
Are you saying that you didn't understand what Detective Flores was asking you during that interview?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, I'm asking you whether or not you understood what he was asking you if he was speaking English.
I understood the English words, sometimes not the meaning of the question.
Oh, so you're going behind the meaning of the question to say that maybe you didn't understand his motive for the question, right?
I'm not sure if I was considering his motive.
Well, you said that you're not sure about whether or not you understood the question because of what was behind the question, right?
His meaning, yes.
His meaning. Well, his meaning can be expressed through his words, right?
Yes.
He was asking you certain things, and then you were answering whatever it was that you wanted to answer, right?
Yes.
And you chose to change your story from the day before, right?
Yes.
And you chose to change the story was because it benefited you, right?
No.
Well, there's a reason that you changed your story, right?
Yes.
Because the story the day before didn't work, right?
I don't know.
Well, you were still in jail, right?
Yes.
And nothing had changed, right?
Not that I remember.
Well, again, I ask you, do you have problems with your memory about any events? It seems like you keep telling me that you have problems with your memory. Do you have problems with your memory?
Occasionally.
You didn't seem to have any problems on direct examination when you were talking to us about all the sexual exploits with Mr. Alexander, did you?
I did have problems.
You regaled us for days on end about his exploits, didn't you?
I wouldn't say regaled.
Okay, you told us about it for days on end, didn't you?
I just answered the questions I
Yes
was
or
asked.
no? You told us. When the question was posed, you told us, didn't you?
To the best of my recollection.
Is anybody saying that you didn't do it to the best of your recollection?
You're implying that?
Ma'am, isn't it true that what the prosecutor's implying is that you knew too much during the direct examination? If we're talking about implications,
Well, then that would be false.
well, isn't it true that you had a great memory when you were on direct examination with regard to issues involving Mr. Alexander's sexual exploits?
Objection, argument, you asked and answered.
Sustained, rephrase.
You told us a lot about you and Mr. Alexander's sexual dalliances, right?
Yes.
And you were able to give us dates, right?
Usually.
Well, a lot of the times you were able to give us dates, right?
Yes.
You were able to tell us what happened, right?
Usually.
Well, a lot of the time. For example, the first time that, according to you, you had oral sex, you were able to tell us when that was, right?
Yes.
You were able to tell us how it happened, right?
Yes.
You were able to tell us where it was, right?
Yes.
And that was before July 16th of 2008, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was in November of 2006, right?
No.
When was it then?
A week after we met, September
So when was that?
2006.
It was in 2006, and so a week after you met what, in June what?
Early September 2006.
So you do have a good memory, right? You just showed me that you'd have a good memory for events that occurred before July 16th of 2008, right?
I reviewed those things, so I memorized them.
Oh, so you actually sat down and you memorized it. How is it that what did you memorize it from?
Date and timestamps.
I know, but what did you memorize it from, ma'am? Are you
Photographs.
talking that you sat down with a police report and then you memorized it?
No, they were photographs.
Pardon?
They were photos.
Family photos?
Photos.
Photographs. So you looked at some photographs then, right?
Yes.
Oh, so there were photographs of the first time that you had oral intercourse with Mr. Alexander?
No.
Well, then what is it that you reviewed that gives you this knowledge?
Photographs of the convention in Las Vegas 2006 that were date and time stamped.
So it was in July of 2006, is this when this happened, right?
September.
And it was in September of 2006 that were there photographs of it?
Convention, yes.
Were there photographs at or near the time of this oral sex that you regaled us with?
I don't think so.
So but you do have an independent recollection of it, don't you?
What do you mean by that?
Do you have an independent memory of having oral intercourse with Mr. Alexander the first time it happened?
You mean, I don't know what you mean. Independent of what?
Do you have a memory of the first time you had oral intercourse with Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
So you do remember it then, right?
Yes.
And you remember where it was, right?
Yes.
So that event was before this July 16th of 2008 interview, right?
Yes.
That was further in time, right?
Yes.
You didn't seem to have too much of a memory problem with that, right?
That's right.
Did you ever review anything else with regard to the July 16th, 2008 interview?
Very briefly, it makes me sick
Is
to my
that a yes or
stomach.
no?
I guess that would be yes.
So you did review parts, at least, according to you, the way you're saying it, of the interview that you had on July 16th of 2008, right?
Yes.
And you're saying that your memory of what happened on July 16th of 2008 is so clouded today that it's only based on that review?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You do have an independent recollection of it then, right?
What do you mean by independent?
Independent means coming from inside of your head.
It's based on what I've reviewed.
So everything that you have told us then in this case is based on what you reviewed?
I'm referring to July 16th.
So everything with regard to July 16th is based on what you reviewed. You don't have any other recollection.
Not everything, but most of it.
Do you remember that you lied?
Yes.
And do you remember what you lied about?
Yes.
Sir. And do you remember that you lied about the killing of Travis Alexander, right?
Yes.
And that, you know, is a change from what you said the day before, right?
Yes.
And it was a drastic change, right?
Yes.
It was a total change because now you were there, right?
Yes.
You knew that that would be important, right?
Yes.
And in fact, what you were trying to do is because the detective had already told you about the fingerprints, didn't he?
I think he did, yes.
And he also told you about the hair that was there, correct?
Yes.
You guys talked about DNA analysis, didn't you?
Yes.
And and he showed you the photograph with a foot in it, with your foot in it. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So after he showed, and you don't deny that that's your foot in the photograph, do you?
I don't deny it.
And after he told you that, that's when you changed your story, didn't you?
Yes.
And you changed your story to conform with the forensic evidence that he was telling you about, right?
That's right.
And that was because you wanted to make up a story that conformed with that, with what he was telling you, right?
Yes, as much as possible.
Because you did not want any consequences with regard to the killing of Travis Alexander, right?
I wasn't concerned about consequences at that point.
Ma'am, do you think it's a good excuse to lie just because this detective is giving you some forensic evidence?
No.
But it's a good reason to lie if you want to get out of whatever you are being talked about, right?
That wasn't my goal, so.
Well, was your goal to go to prison?
no. Not a physical prison on earth, no.
Well, ma'am, was your goal to, so your goal was not to go to prison then, right?
It wasn't a goal of mine, I can say.
And in fact, that was something that you were trying to avoid, right?
I don't know. I was trying to kill myself, I think.
Ma'am, you've said that many times, that you tried to kill yourself, right? In court.
I don't know that many, but I've recounted a time that I did.
You've said it more than 3, 4, 5 times, right?
Perhaps.
And in fact, one of the things that you told us about was that, well, when you were in the Maricopa County Jail, that you tried to kill yourself, right?
No, Siskiyou County Jail.
Siskiyou County Jail. So you do remember that. And that when you tried to do that, you took some Advil. Do you remember telling us about that?
Yes.
And that what you did then is you took a razor, right?
Yes.
And that you cut yourself, right?
It was a nick.
It was a nick. And because it stung so much, that you said, nah, this is not the way for me to go, right?
I didn't say that. I
You
just,
said it stung and that's why you stopped. Isn't that what your direct testimony was?
that night, yes.
Right. And that's the night that I'm talking to you about, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking to you about any other night, am I?
It sounded like you were.
No. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about any other night, am I? Do you understand that?
Okay, I understand that.
And you nicked yourself and it hurt, right?
Yes.
And I think the word that you used, stung, right?
Yes.
To use your standard, ma'am, of how you stopped because it stung. Can you imagine how much it must have hurt Mr. Alexander when you stuck that knife right into his chest? That really must have hurt, right?
Argumentative.
Sustained. You may continue.
You also told a story, right? To the
Yes.
detective, right?
Yes.
And your story was that it was 2 individuals that came in, right?
Yes.
And one individual was a male, right?
Yes.
And another one was a female, right?
Yes.
And you know that the police are going to follow up on that, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Do you think that police don't investigate crimes, that if somebody provides them a lead, do you think that they don't go out and try to find out if it's true or not?
Objection, Mr. Rollins.
Roach.
Did you consider the consequences of your lie?
No.
No, because it was all about you, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Didn't consider the consequences, but yet you went even further than saying that it was two people, right? You said other things, right?
Yes.
And that was totally different than what you had said the day before, right?
Yes.
And what you said was that these people, you were taking a photograph, right?
Yes.
You never mentioned anything about dropping a camera, did you?
No.
And you never mentioned anything about running down the hallway or anything like that, did you?
No.
And what you did say is that you were down, somebody hit you on the head, right?
Yes.
That you heard a pop, right?
Yes.
And that while this was going on, you heard Mr. Alexander moaning or uttering some words, right?
Screaming.
Screaming. And you heard him screaming to go, you said that he was screaming to go to the neighbors, right?
Yes.
And at some point you said that you saw Mr. Alexander on all fours, right?
Yes.
And he couldn't move his feet or feel his legs, right?
I said that he said that.
Pardon?
I said that he said that.
But he wasn't moving, was he?
He was.
According to your story, he wasn't moving, was he?
I don't remember. He was lethargic, is what I think I said. He said. I said that he said.
You weren't able to get him out of there, according to your story, right?
That's correct.
But you were able, at some point, according to you, get out of there, right?
Yes.
And that's what you told the detective, right?
Yes.
And the reason you told the detective this lie was because you didn't want to be charged in this case, didn't you?
That's not the reason.
Was the reason that you told him that because you did want to be charged in this case?
What did you say?
I said, was the reason that you told him that because you did want to be charged in this case?
Because I did.
Yes, you said you didn't. Ma'am, didn't you just tell me that the reason you told him that was not because you didn't want to be charged? That's what you just said, right?
That wasn't the reason I told him that. That's correct.
Well, you didn't tell him the story just so you could be charged, right?
That's also correct.
So you told him a story for a reason, right?
Yes.
Is it the embarrassment factor now?
That was part of it.
And so it's more important to you about your feelings of embarrassment than to tell the truth.
You say that as present tense. That's not correct.
I'm talking about back on July 16th of 2008. Your feelings of embarrassment were more important than telling the truth, right?
I didn't really weigh importance.
Well, you said that one of the reasons that you didn't tell the truth was because of embarrassment, right?
I think shame would be more correct.
All right, let's go with the word shame then. Because of you were thinking of shame back then, that's why you didn't tell him the truth, right?
That's just part of the reason. The
Part of
bigger
it.
part.
And that shame is what, on you?
Yes.
And you are ashamed because you killed him? Is that what it is?
I was definitely ashamed of that and other things.
But you were also ashamed that it would get out that you were the person that did it, right?
Certainly.
And so, to you, the fact that your feelings, in this case being ashamed, are so strong back then that that was an excuse, a good excuse for your lie, right?
It wasn't the sole deciding factor, but it was a big reason.
It was a big reason, but my question is much more direct than that. My question is, this feeling ashamed was more important to you then than telling the truth.
I wouldn't say important, but it felt stronger.
All right, to use your phrase, your feeling of being ashamed was strong back then to the point that it overrode your telling the truth, right?
That's right.
But that's no excuse, is it?
No.
Nothing that you might have been feeling at that time was an excuse to lie, right?
That's right.
But you still chose to do it, right?
Yes.
Because it would have benefited you, whether it was because you felt ashamed or because you didn't want to tell about it, right?
I wasn't thinking of benefits.
What's that?
I was not thinking of benefits.
Well, you weren't thinking of telling the truth, were you?
I was thinking about it.
But you didn't do it.
No, I didn't.
And there were this factor of being ashamed. What other factors did you consider, ma'am?
I considered if I told the truth, then I would have to explain why. And if I had to explain why, then I would have to go back through our whole history, back to things that he was very ashamed of, that I was ashamed of, that I just didn't want to get out.
But didn't you just, in this trial, haven't you through 8 days tell us all of that stuff?
Yeah, I think it was 9 days.
Okay, 9 days. You have a good memory. For 9 days, you told us all of that stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't based on my memory. Someone told me 9 days.
What? What do you mean? What did you just say? Somebody told you what?
You said I had a good memory because I corrected you, but it wasn't based on my memory. Someone had said I was on the stand for 9 days, so that's why I said 9.
So it isn't on. So what you're testifying to isn't necessarily what you know. Then is what you're telling us, right?
It's what I believe.
Well, you just said that it's what somebody told you, right?
Yes.
So, are you testifying based on what something somebody told you instead of what you know?
In that case, yeah. The
Well,
9
no,
days.
not in that case. I'm talking about what you're telling us here today. Are you telling us these things because you know them or because somebody told you?
The things I'm saying right now are because I know them.
Except for the number of days you were on the witness stand, right? That one, somebody told you that one.
Someone told me that one, and it sounded accurate.
And then, so you used that to correct the prosecutor, right? Even though you
That's
didn't
correct.
remember.
Yes.
With regard to that day, you said that all of this stuff, information, whatever you want to call it, was out there and you didn't want it to come out, right?
It wasn't out there. I didn't want it to be out there.
So what you're saying is, I guess, is that you were being a good Samaritan, right? In lying.
I wouldn't say that.
Faint.
Well, you were saying that you didn't want this stuff to come out about Mr. Alexander and your relationship with him, right?
That's right.
So you were being a good person, right?
Sustained.
Well, do you think that that's an excuse that to not tell the truth? That you wanted to hide information?
No.
So you did hide information in addition to lying, right?
Yes.
But the detective isn't the only person that you lied to, right?
That's right.
You lied to a lot of people, right?
Everyone.
And there's different reasons that you had for lying to everyone, right?
Yes.
And in fact, one of the people that you lied to was Ryan Burns, right?
Yes.
Ryan Burns is this individual that you had a romantic interest in, right?
Yes.
In fact, in order to see whether or not the spark was there, you went all the way to Utah, right?
That was my goal.
Well, it was your goal, but you made it there, right?
Yes, but not for the reason you stated.
So you weren't there to go see him to see if there was any romantic interest?
Not on June 5th.
Not on June 5th, when you started your trip, part of your trip. So you're saying then that he was an afterthought?
Yeah, he was.
So he was just an alibi then?
Yeah, well, no, not an alibi.
Well, if he's an afterthought, then if he's an afterthought, that means the primary thought that you had when you left Wairika back on June 2nd was to see Travis Alexander then. If Mr. Burns was an afterthought, as you say.
That's not correct.
Well, that's what you said though, right?
No, that's what you
was
said.
Mr. Burns was an afterthought, right?
No, he was an afterthought after June 4th.
Okay, so before that he was a priority thought.
He was the reason for the trip.
So he was the reason for the trip then, right?
Yes.
And the reason for the trip to go see him was to see whether or not there was a romantic interest, right?
That's why I planned the trip.
Right. That's my question. You wanted to see if there was going to be any sparks between you and Mr. Burns, right?
Yes.
And you had not seen him before that date in the sense that you hadn't been with him alone, correct?
That's correct.
You hadn't been out on a date with him before, right?
That's right.
You had only done the text messaging, right?
And phone calls and
Well,
emails.
is that a yes or a no, text messaging?
That would be yes.
And with regard to the telephone calls, you had done that, right?
Yes.
And you'd done that instant messaging thing, right?
I can't remember if that was before or after June 4th.
Well, but you did do that with him though, right?
Yes.
Do you remember sending him an instant message saying something to the effect, this is a test, before you went out to see him? Remember seeing that?
I remember seeing this as a test, but I don't recall the date.
And because of this interaction, you decided to go see him, right?
Yes.
And when you got there, one of the things that you said was that, well, I needed to keep up the facade, right?
That's right.
So you lied about getting lost, right?
Yes.
You didn't get lost that day, right?
I did get lost.
Oh, so you did get lost. So it was true then. This trip to see Mr. Alexander, it was because you got lost.
That's not why.
Well, where did you get, if you could tell us, because you were lost, where did you get lost, ma'am?
My understanding is it was somewhere in Arizona.
Not your understanding. I want you to tell me where you got lost, not what somebody else may have told you.
Objection, Your Honor, she should be allowed to answer the question.
Answer the question.
My understanding is that I was
Ma'am,
lost somewhere in Arizona.
you're not being responsive. I'm asking you to tell me where you drove physically to the point where you got lost. Where did it start that you got, where does the beginning of your getting lost start?
Again, I'm going to object, Your Honor. She asked a question. She was in the middle of answering and he interrupted. She should be allowed to answer his
All
question.
right, overruled. Change the question.
Ma'am, when was the first time you realized you were lost?
When I couldn't power on my phone, it was dark.
Was this before or after you killed Mr. Alexander?
After.
And this is where you pulled off the side of the road, right?
Yes.
And then you continued to drive from that point to see Mr. Burns, right?
I just drove at that
I
point.
understand that you say you just drove, but from that point on, you did get a chance to speak to Mr. Burns, right?
Yes.
And in fact, one of the people the first person that you actually called once you got your phone charged was Matt McCartney, right?
Yes.
And he's somebody that you are very close to, right?
Somewhat, yes.
He's a very good friend, right?
Yes.
He's an ally, right?
I don't know what you mean by ally.
Someone who will not betray you.
No, he's betrayed me.
So, and you're talking about the fact that he saw somebody else, right? When he was with you, right? Is that what you're talking about, the betrayal?
That's only one of the times he's betrayed me.
So you've never told somebody, for example, like 48 Hours, that he was somebody that will not betray you.
I did say that on 48 Hours.
So which is it? Is he going to betray you or is he not going to betray you? What is it?
Well, hopefully not.
Well, hopefully not means you're not answering the question. You just told us that he did betray you, yet now you're saying that in an interview with 48 Hours, you said he would not betray you. So which is it?
I'm going to object to the relevance of any of this.
Overruled.
Well, when I made that statement to 48 Hours, it was my belief that he would not.
It was your way of what?
My belief that he would not betray me.
With regard to any issues that were presented at the time that you made the telephone call to him after you killed Mr. Alexander, right?
With regard to that, when I said that in September versus
Right.
June.
With regard to the call, if you told him anything, he wouldn't betray you, right?
That's what I said in September 2008.
And that's what you believed in September of 2008, right?
In September 2008, yes.
So you're out there and you try to call Mr. McCartney, and so you say that you're lost, but one of the other things that you say that you do is that you get out of the car, right?
Yes.
And you clean up, right?
Yes.
That's because you knew what you had done, right?
I don't remember thinking that.
Well, I'm not asking you whether or not you remember thinking that. Isn't that the reason why you did it?
No. I don't think so.
Well, you knew that you had killed Mr. Alexander at that point, right?
It's hard to describe.
Yes or no? It's a yes or no sort of situation there.
It's not really. It's
It
something.
is.
It's not.
So in your mind, back then, when you're on the side of the road, you don't know if you killed him, right? That's what you're saying.
I can't really say it wasn't in my mind. Like, it was kind of not there. It's kind of
You
weird.
weren't there, right? What you're saying is you weren't there, right? That's what you just said, right? That you weren't there. That's what you just said, right?
Weren't there
And
in my
so-
head.
And so if you weren't there, though, you were there enough to pick up the phone and call Matthew McCartney, right? You were
Yes.
there enough for that, right?
Yes.
You were there enough to call Ryan Burns, right?
After a while, yes.
You were there enough for that, and you were there enough to make a call to Travis Alexander, weren't you?
Yes.
So you were there for those purposes, but you weren't there to tell me about what you were thinking, though, right? Is that what you're saying?
It depends on the time period.
How about the time when you got out, when you started to wash your hands?
By then, I wasn't thinking that. I just knew something awful had happened because I had blood on my hands and my feet.
And so you knew that those were for Mr. Alexander, didn't you?
I think I did, yes.
You think you did, but again, you're telling us you're not sure, right?
I'm not telling you that.
Well, you had blood on your hands, right?
That's right.
And you had been driving, right?
Yes.
According to you, you had been at Mr. Alexander's house, right?
Yes.
There had been a fight, right?
Yes.
And you had done something, right?
Yes.
And this doing something had caused Mr. Alexander to bleed, right?
Yes.
And so if that's the case and you have blood on your hands, wouldn't you think that the blood came from Mr. Alexander?
I had cuts too, so
So you're thinking that the cuts could have come from you stabbing him?
I didn't have any recall of stabbing him at that
Well
point in
then,
time.
so you don't have any idea where your cuts come from then, at that point?
No, I cut myself on June 4th, early in the morning before we went to bed.
So you cut yourself on the glass, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Is this the situation where you're saying that you cut yourself on your right hand, right?
Yes.
You're left-handed, right?
I'm both.
Do you know who you're ambidextrous, is that what you're saying?
Yes, depending on the activity.
Well, do you remember indicating to 48 Hours that you're a lefty?
Yes.
So what is it? Are you left or right?
Depends on the activity.
And what activity do you write left-handed?
I write with both, but I'm more proficient with my left.
And so with regard to this being out there, so you're out there and you've made these calls, you've got out, and you find your charger, right? Is that when you find the charger?
When I pulled over, yes.
And at some point you're able to make a telephone call to Mr. Burns, right?
Yes.
And then starts the lying to him, right?
Yes.
And so at some point then you drive all the way up to see him, and you get there around 11 o'clock in the morning, right?
I think so, yes.
Well, in between 11 and noon, would that be accurate?
I believe it was before noon.
And after 11, right?
I think so. I wasn't paying
But-
attention at the time, but it was late morning.
Right? And you go up there, you have this meeting, and when you go up there to see him, you're telling us that you still don't know if Mr. Alexander is dead, right? That's what you're telling us, right?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, so you do know that he's dead then.
I have a, it's like I wasn't accepting it or looking at it in
Well-
my mind.
Acceptance and knowing are two different things. Wouldn't you agree, ma'am?
I was in a strong state of denial.
Ma'am, that's not my question to you. My question is accepting and knowing are two different things. Don't you agree?
Yes. I
And
agree.
so what you're saying is that you weren't accepting it. What that means is that you knew it. You just didn't want to deal with it. That's what you're saying, right?
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, you're the one that talked about acceptance, right? You just said that right now, correct?
That's correct.
And so by acceptance, it means you don't want to deal with it, right?
I don't know.
Well, you're the one that used that word. Why wouldn't you know?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
I don't know. My mind wasn't right during that whole period.
Well, you're throwing up your hands and you're saying that your mind wasn't right, but that's not the issue. The issue here is whether or not you knew he was dead, and it appears, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're saying you did know that he was dead.
I believe that I knew he was dead.
Okay, so you knew he was dead. And when you went to see Mr. Burns, you were the same person that you had been before. You were happy, smiling, right?
I was not, but I was trying to portray that.
Yeah. You were trying to portray that to lie to him, right? Put up a facade, right?
Yes, him and all my friends.
Pardon?
Him and all my friends.
I'm asking about Mr. Burns, all right? With regard to Mr. Burns, you were trying to put up a facade for him, right?
That's right.
You wanted to pretend that you were happy, right?
Yes.
And the reason that you wanted to pretend that you were happy is because you wanted to see if there was any spark with Mr. Burns, right?
That was the furthest thing from my mind at that point.
Okay, so if that's the furthest thing from your mind, then the closest thing in your mind is the fact that you killed Mr. Alexander, right?
I wasn't thinking of it in those terms.
Well, but isn't that sort of what you're telling us now?
It was something to that effect.
And so you go on through the day, and there's this meeting that takes place with Mr. Burns and one of his associates at a restaurant, right?
Yes.
And you follow along, and then after that, after the meeting, you go back to Mr. Burns's place, right?
Yes.
And now it's the afternoon, right?
Yes.
And during the afternoon, when you're with Mr. Burns, you begin to kiss him, right?
Yes.
And that's because you want to put up a facade, right?
I guess that's part of the reason.
Well, no, you said when you were on direct that that was the reason. You wanted to put up a facade, right?
Objection, mischaracterizes her testimony.
Restate the question.
Man, with regard to Mr. Burns and kissing him, was the reason that you kissed him because you wanted to put up a facade?
That was one of the reasons.
All right, and the other reason was that you wanted to see if there was a spark between the two of you, right?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
That's not right.
But you did kiss him though, right?
Yes, I did.
Knowing that Mr. Alexander was dead, right?
I guess so.
Well, no, we don't want you to guess. We want you to know. And if you don't know, you can tell me that. Did you just tell me previously that you knew that Mr. Alexander was dead?
It's hard to explain.
Man, what is hard to explain about a person breathing or not breathing? What is so difficult? Why is that a difficult concept for you?
Because I'd never killed anyone before.
Okay, so because you've never killed anyone before, then you're having a problem deciding whether or not the person is dead, right?
I'm having a hard time describing what my state of mind was during that time.
If you hadn't killed anybody before, and you didn't know if he was dead, then why did you just leave him to die?
Objection, Mr. Relevance.
Overruled.
I don't think I did that.
Well, sure, you just told us that you'd never killed anybody before and you didn't know. So what you're telling us is that you left them to die, didn't you?
I don't believe that.
Okay, so then you did know he was dead. Can't have it both ways. Which one is it?
Objection, Your Honor. Argument, if she's already explained her state of mind. She's not a psychologist.
Sustained as to the question. Rephrase.
At the time you were kissing Mr. Burns' lips, did you know he was dead, yes or no? And by he, I mean Mr. Alexander.
Objection, asked and answered, Judge.
Overruled.
I think I did.
Okay? And so, but yet you continue kissing Mr. Burns anyway, right?
I don't know.
You mean you don't remember that you guys were continually making out, or not continually, but were making out before you went out for the evening?
I don't remember making out with him before we went out for the evening.
But you were kissing him, whatever that means, right?
We kissed.
Then you went to this training that was in the evening, correct?
It wasn't a training, it was a business briefing.
It was a briefing in the evening, right?
Yes.
And it was at a college, I believe, correct?
I don't remember.
And is that when you drove with Leslie Udy or not?
I don't remember. I think I might have followed Ryan to the place where the meeting was.
And when you went to this place, that's where you met up with Leslie Udy, right?
Yes.
And then after that, there was a meeting where you guys went to Chili's, right?
I'm not sure what restaurant it was.
All right, so you went to a restaurant, correct?
That's correct.
And when you went to this restaurant, before you went in, you were talking to Leslie Udy, right? In the car.
It was either before we went in or after, but at one point we were in the parking lot discussing things.
And you talked to her for about an hour, right?
I don't remember how long.
It was not 5 minutes, it was longer than 5 minutes,
It
right?
was longer than 5 minutes.
And during that time, that's when you told her that you looked forward to the future when your kids, those that you were going to have, and Mr. Alexander's kids could play together at PPL meetings, right?
Yes.
That was a lie. Wasn't it?
Objection, Your Honor. The question is what she was hoping. It's not a definitive fact.
Can you please restate the question?
You lied to Leslie Udy when you told her that it was your hope that your kids and Mr. Alexander's kids played together at PPL events.
No, that was a hope of mine.
Pardon?
That was a hope of mine.
Oh, so you're saying that you thought he was alive at that time then, for you to have that hope.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, if you're saying that and you know he's dead, why are you lying to her?
I had that hope.
How can you say, as you sit here today, ma'am, that that was your hope when you knew he was dead? You can't have it both ways.
Objection, Your Honor. This characterizes her testimony.
It was a hope of mine. And the fact that he had died didn't change my hope. It just made that hope unrealistic.
Oh, so the way you're saying now is the way you phrased it to her was that you hoped that your kids could play with his kids, not that that's what you wanted. Is that what you're saying now?
Objection. This characterizes her testimony again.
That's not what was said, actually.
Well, if you don't know what was said, then why are you telling me that you said hope? That you hoped?
I didn't say I don't know what was said.
Pardon?
I didn't say I don't know what was said.
Well, did you use the word hope?
I might have used the word hope.
And if that's the case, if you used the word hope, then what you're telling us is that that was your hope even though he was dead, right?
That was a hope of mine.
Don't you think that that's a lie, knowing what you knew at the time?
No, because I'm just stating a wish that I had.
Oh, so that was your wish even though you had killed him.
Yes, it was my wish.
And the other thing that you told her was that you and he were great friends, right?
Yes.
And you never mentioned anything about what happened at his house, did you?
That's right.
That was omitting important information, wasn't it?
Yes.
Ma'am, do you know somebody by the name of Mark Udy?
Yes.
He was there that night at that restaurant, wasn't he?
I believe he was.
And in fact, he sat next to you, didn't he?
I think so, yes.
So it's your testimony that you did not, knowing that he was there that night, so is it your testimony that you did not have any cuts to your left hand?
I had cuts on my right hand for sure, and I don't remember about my left.
So it could be then that you did have cuts on your left hand, right? Correct?
It could be, but I didn't have Band-Aids on my left hand.
I'm not asking you about Band-Aids. Maybe that's the problem here. I'm asking whether or not you had cuts on your left hand.
I don't recall. I remember my right hand was cut.
So, but it could be that you did, right?
Possibly.
And Mr. Jodi was sitting right next to you, right?
Yes.
And because you were eating, he was in a position to see your hands, right?
Overruled.
I would think so.
Pardon?
I would think so.
Right, because your hands were above the table, right?
Yes.
You know whether or not you had gauze on your cuts.
No, they were Band-Aids.
So you're saying you had Band-Aids on your cuts, right?
On my right hand.
Okay? But you don't remember whether or not you had any Band-Aids on your left hand, right?
I did not have Band-Aids on my left hand.
You just may have had cuts. Is that what you're saying?
If I did, I don't remember, but I guess it's possible.
Well, you keep saying that it's possible. Why would you say now that it's possible that you would have cuts on your left hand? What makes you think that you might have cuts on your left hand?
Nothing makes me think that.
Well, then why are you saying it's possible? Aren't you really telling me that you didn't have any cuts on your left hand?
Not that I remember.
Okay, not that you remember means there's the possibility that it could be, right?
That's what I'm saying.
So there is a possibility that it could be. You don't remember. So if somebody else says that there may be, you wouldn't have any reason to quibble with that.
Objection, argumentative, proper question.
Overruled.
I don't know.
And you don't know because you don't remember? Is that it?
I don't know because I didn't have Band-Aids on my left. I had them on my right.
Ma'am, one of the other things that happened after that is that at some point you then returned back to Mr. Burns' home, right?
Yes.
And you returned back to Mr. Burns' house, and you guys go to sleep, right?
Yes.
You set your clock, or the clock is set so that you can get up, right?
Yes.
You need to get back to work, right?
Yes.
And you need to get back to work. Margaritaville?
No.
You never worked at Margaritaville at that time, right?
I don't know that there's any place called Margaritaville, so no.
So the answer is no, right?
That's right.
And so it's also true that if you broke a glass at work and you cut your hand, it wouldn't have been at a place called Margaritaville, right?
That's right.
Once you're there with Mr. Burns, you do wake up at some point, right?
Yes.
There's a movie that you guys were watching at some point also, correct?
Yes.
And when you wake up, you became passionate with him, right? You started to kiss him, didn't you?
Not passionate, yes, kissing.
You were what?
Not passionate, but yes, kissing.
And at some point, isn't it true that you quote unquote adjusted him?
I helped him adjust himself.
Okay, but if you helped him adjust himself, there was some adjusting that was going on, right?
That's right.
And that means that you moved his buttocks, is what we're talking about, right?
No.
Didn't you move his body then so that he would be his body would be more available to yours?
No.
You didn't get on top of him and grind on top of him with your clothing on.
No.
That's not anything that you did, right?
I did not grind that guy.
You didn't, perhaps there's the Mormons, without getting too much into it, you and Mr. Alexander did this grinding, didn't you?
Yes.
And that means something in your relationship, doesn't it?
I don't know.
Well, you just said that you and Mr. Alexander did this, right?
Yes, I did.
And that meant that your genitalia rubbed against each other, right?
Yes.
So what you're saying is that your genitalia did not rub against Mr. Burns' genitalia, correct?
That's correct.
But you did get on top of him, right? Around the waist area.
No, I got off of him. I fell asleep on top of him.
And no, that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking whether or not while you were kissing him, you got on top of his waist area. That's what I'm asking.
I don't I think I was laying next to him.
You keep saying think. I want you to tell me whether or not you got on top of Mr. Burns and placed your genitalia, where it would be, I know you were clothed, on top of his. That's what I'm asking.
No, I got off from being on top of him.
So if you got off from being on top of him, at some point you had to be on top of him then, right?
Yes.
And so you were on top of his genitalia with your body. Part of
No.
your body was on top of his, right?
No, I was on top of his stomach.
Okay, and was, what you're saying is you were on top of his stomach with your legs spread or not?
I don't recall. We were in the love sack.
Pardon? I know you were in the love sack, but I'm asking whether or not you were straddling his stomach area.
I think I might have been.
Okay? You say you think you might have been, which means really nothing because you're not admitting to anything. Isn't it true that you were straddling his midsection?
Objection, ask and answer. It's been the
Sustained.
third time.
Sustained.
Ma'am, and during that time that you were on top of him, there was some kissing that was going on, right?
No, we were sleeping.
But as soon as you woke up, you kissed him, right?
Not as soon as I woke up.
Some point thereafter, you kissed him, right?
Before I left, yes.
So you're saying that there was no romantic kissing that went on, is what you're telling me, right?
That's not what I'm saying.
So there was romantic kissing that went on.
Yes.
When did this romantic kissing take place?
I think it started first in the afternoon and then in the evening, or I guess it would be early morning on the 5th or the 6th. But
And
before
he
I
also
left.
placed his hands between your legs, right? Some point.
Not that I recall.
But that means that you were here when he testified, right?
Yes.
So it could be that he did place his hands between your legs, right?
No, could be that he was full of crap. He didn't go there.
So you are saying that Mr. Burns is full of crap,
When he said he got near my vaginal area, absolutely.
right? So, and you're the same person that's telling us that he's full of crap that has lied to him, right?
Yes.
That has lied to Leslie Udy, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That has lied to Detective Flores on 2 occasions, right?
Yes.
And to continue this litany of lies, it isn't restricted to Utah. You also lied to people in Arizona, didn't you?
Yes, everyone.
Right. And yet you're telling us somebody else is full of crap, right?
When it comes to that, yes.
So the answer is yes.
I said yes.
And so after this happened, you went back to Wairika, correct? Drove back.
Yes.
And you drove back to Wairika and you didn't tell anybody anything that had happened, right?
You mean at Travis's house?
Yes, at Travis's house.
That's correct.
One of the things that ended up happening, though, is that you then received a call on June 10th of 2008 in the early morning hours, right?
Yes.
And you received that call from an individual by the name of Daniel Freeman, didn't you?
Yes.
He's the same individual that testified here today, not today, but at some point during these proceedings, right?
Yes.
And he was telling you about Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
And you lied to him, right?
I don't know, I guess.
Well, no, we don't want you to guess, ma'am. You did lie to him, didn't you?
I'm trying to recall our conversation.
Well, did you tell him I'm the person who killed him? You didn't do that, did you?
No, I didn't.
You pretended you didn't know anything about it, right?
I don't remember. He just told me.
I know what he just told you. I want to know whether or not you told him that you knew that something had happened to Mr. Alexander on June 4th of 2008. Did you tell him that?
No.
You omitted that, right?
Yes.
Even though he was calling you to talk to you about Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
The conversation allowed for that sort of response from you, right?
Yes.
But you didn't do it. Instead, you kept it to yourself, right?
Yes.
He was upset when he called you, right?
Objection, cause for speculation.
Sustained.
Heard his voice, right?
Yes.
And you could tell from his voice whether or not he was upset. You've been around him before, hadn't you?
Yes.
You'd been around him many times going to his house for Sunday dinner, right?
Yes.
And you've also been around him when he'd been around with his family, right?
Yes.
With his sister Desiree, right?
Yes.
Had gone up to Sedona with you, right?
Yes.
Had gone up to the Grand Canyon with you, right?
Yes.
Had gone up to the Havasupai Falls, right?
Yes.
You had significant contact with him, right?
Yes.
And in fact, at some point, you even thought that he liked you, right?
Yes.
And in fact, you wrote that in your journal, right?
Yes.
So you could tell from his tone of voice that he was upset.
I've never heard him upset in my life, actually.
Okay, so that tone of voice that he displayed to you was foreign to you.
It was gentle, the way he was talking.
All right, so it was a gentle tone of voice. And in this gentle tone of voice, you never told him that you were responsible for the killing of Mr. Alexander, were you?
No, I did not.
You could have, though, right?
Yes.
He was a pretty close friend, right?
Yes.
And instead, what you chose to do is you chose to perpetuate the lie, right?
Yes.
You then started to call a religious person, didn't you?
Yes.
You called somebody by the name of Bishop Layton, right?
Yes.
And you called him and you asked him whether or not Mr. Alexander was dead, right?
I didn't think I asked him that.
Well, isn't that the topic of the conversation, Mr. Alexander's death?
Yes.
And during this time, you're calling as the grieving ex-girlfriend, right? Somebody who cares.
I was calling as a friend.
Okay, if you're calling as a friend, why are you calling if you already know what happened to Mr. Alexander other than to lie about it?
There were many things I didn't know. I
Oh,
called
so you just wanted to get information about the death so you could use it later to lie about it? Is that what it is?
Objection, argumentative.
I just called because I wanted to know what he knew.
And the reason you wanted to know what he knew was so that you could see whether or not anybody was on to you, right?
Yes, partially.
And it wasn't like you cared about Mr. Alexander. It was you just wanted to see what it was that you needed to do to make sure that you weren't charged with a crime, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
Ma'am, you wanted to see what he knew is what you told us, right?
Yes.
What purpose would there be for that information, knowing what he knows about it, other than to benefit you?
The fact that there was a big memory block was bothering me.
I'm not asking you if a memory block was bothering you.
You asked
Am
the
I?
reason. What other reason?
Am I asking you if a memory block was bothering you?
Objection, Your Honor, to ask and answer. She answered the question he asked.
Am I asking you if a memory block was bothering you?
No.
I was asking you about the information that you were trying to get and what you were going to do with it, right?
No, that's not what you were asking me.
Ma'am, isn't it true that I asked you the purpose for calling Bishop Layton, right?
No.
I asked you that. Why did you call Bishop Layton? Didn't I ask you that?
Prior, yes.
Well, this is part of the same conversation, isn't it?
Yes.
And you do agree that you called Bishop Layton, right?
Yes.
In the middle of the night, right?
Yes.
3 a.m., I think, right?
Yeah, it was late.
And you called Bishop Layton, and you spoke to him because you wanted to get information about what he knew about the investigation, right?
That was part of it.
Yes, that part. Let's talk about that part. The part that you wanted to know about the investigation, that was going to help you should something come of this, right?
Objection, again, argumentative.
That wasn't my thought, really.
That wasn't your thought, then why do you even want to know about it?
I couldn't remember much or anything from that day.
Well, you remembered that you had been there, didn't you?
Yes.
You remembered that there had been this confrontation, right?
I do remember that.
Yes, and you remember that you didn't call 911, right?
Yes.
So why is it that you even need to know about the investigation since you have first-hand knowledge? Why are you asking for somebody who has second-hand knowledge?
Objection, Your Honor, mischaracterizes. She didn't have first-hand knowledge. She had no memory.
you were there. You're the person who killed her, right? You've admitted that in court, right?
Yes.
That means you were there, right?
Yes.
If you were there, and you knew you were there, you did know you were there, though, didn't you?
Yes.
If you knew that you were there and that he was dead, then why are you calling for information? Is it to rub it in?
Objection, argumentative.
Why are you calling for
Your Honor.
Pardon? May continue.
After Bishop Layton, who did you call?
I think I called Gus Searcy at one point.
Didn't you also call Leslie Udy?
Yes.
And you called to tell her about this, right?
Yes.
And this was after you had received confirmation that he was dead, right?
I believe it was, yes.
You never told her, again, during this conversation, about the fact that you had been there on June 4th of 2008, correct?
That's correct.
Ma'am, in addition to making statements to those people, you went out of your way to contact Mr. Alexander's family, didn't you?
Again, argumentative, out of his way.
I made contact, yes.
Well, do you know who Mumums is?
Yes.
What is Mumum's name?
Norma Sarby.
And Norma Sarby is Mr. Alexander's grandmother, right?
That's right.
And in fact, that's the person who raised Mr. Alexander, correct?
I believe so.
Well, when you say you believe so, it sounds like you don't know. You did have a relationship with Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
And on direct examination, you told us about a time that you went over to his grandmother's house, right?
Yes.
And you and Mr. Alexander talked about his upbringing in the Rubidoux area of Southern California, right?
Briefly.
Pardon? Briefly means you did talk about it, right?
Yes.
And so one of the things that you did was that you actually sent Miss Sarvey irises, right?
Yes.
And you sent her 20 of them, right?
Yes.
And in addition to that, you attached a note, right?
Yes.
And in it, you indicated that she was in your prayers, right?
Yes.
You did this, ma'am. That's a lie, right? When you say that you felt sympathy for her, isn't it?
No, that wasn't a lie.
Oh, so you felt badly for her?
Yes.
You felt badly for her. Is this just sort of a way for you to assuage your guilt? Is that what it is?
That wasn't my thought.
Pardon?
That wasn't my thought.
Well, you say that wasn't your thought, but if you're the person that has done this, she actually received them on June 13th of 2008, didn't she?
I don't know.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Ma'am, didn't you write in your journal that she received them on June 13th of 2008?
Yes.
So you weren't speculating about that, were you?
I was going off my email confirmation.
Right. So she received these, and you included this message telling her that you were sorry for what had happened, right?
Yes.
That was for your benefit, wasn't it?
No.
Well, it wasn't for your benefit?
No.
Even though you had done it? You still, we're sending this out, right?
Sending what?
Part,
The flowers?
the irises, the
Yes.
flowers. That's what we're talking about. And you knew she was an older woman, didn't you?
Yes.
And you knew this, that she was very tight with Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
And so you, as her killer, then, are sending these items to her.
Objection, Your Honors. Related to killing her?
Sustained. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the noon recess at this time. Please be back in the jury room by 1:25. Remember the admonition. Have a nice lunch. You are excused. The record will show the jury has left the courtroom. Ms. Arias, you may step down. Counsel, 125. You may. Bring in the jury. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience while we resolved an issue. Mr. Martinez, you may continue.
Ma'am, in addition to sending the flowers, you actually sent the letter to the brothers, sisters, or the family of Travis Alexander, correct?
I sent it to his grandparents' address.
But you sent it to the family, didn't you?
Yes.
And the letter was dated July 28th of 2008, correct?
Yes, that's when I wrote it.
Pardon?
Yes, that's when I wrote it.
And that's Travis Alexander's birthday, isn't it?
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm going to play Exhibit 470, which talks about these particular issues, and then I'll ask you whether or not that is you on this particular excerpt, okay?
Okay.
You did grant interviews to people from 48 Hours, didn't you?
Yes.
There were 2 interviews, right?
Yes.
There was one in Wairika, correct?
Yes.
With Jonathan Leach was the person asking the questions, right?
Right.
And then there was another here at the jail, correct?
Yes.
And the person asking the questions was Maureen Marr, correct?
Yes.
The date of the interview out in Wairika was August 5th of 2008, correct?
I don't remember the date. That sounds right.
Okay.
For the record, the exhibit number.
470.
Travis's family deserves to know what happened. And because I may be the only person that will ever be able to say what happened that day, at least for now, I believe that one day all things will be made known. And so they'll know who did this, and they'll know what exactly went down, and they'll know what happened. But I just know that if it were my brother, I would want to know. And I feel that above all things, they deserve to know what happened. And they deserve to hear how things went down. If it were my brother, I'd want to know what his last minutes were like and what was being said and things like that.
Did you ever communicate to them or try to reach out and tell them?
Yes, but not until I got into here. I wrote them a letter. I don't know if it'll ever make it to them. I don't know if they'll even read it. But that's the only attempt that I've made, other than I called his grandmother and you know, expressed my sympathies to her, and I sent flowers to her. I sent her 20 white irises, and the reason I chose irises was because when Travis and I were discussing baby names, he said of the girls' names, you know, he liked the name Iris. You know, he liked the name Hinckley and Megan and Reagan. And I thought Hinckley was an interesting name for a girl's name. It's actually a last name. But Iris was among those, and I thought, well, that's a flower, and I'll just do that. Sort of, it was my own symbology. A meaning meant something to me. I didn't tell them that. I don't think that they realized that, but
Do you
that's
remember
okay.
what you wrote them in the letter?
It was something very simple, short and sweet. I don't remember exactly. But I did leave my phone number, and I told them that if they ever need anything, to please call me. And I told them that they're in my prayers now and always.
Ma'am, that letter that you wrote, as we said, was 18 pages long, correct?
That sounds about right.
And in that letter, you actually tell the family that the people that did it were this male and this female, right?
Yes.
So you lied to them, didn't you?
Yes.
You put it in writing, didn't you?
Yes.
And when you're talking here, and by here I mean to this person, you indicate things like, they deserve to know what happened. They did deserve to know what happened, but did they deserve that lie?
I guess not.
When you say you guess not, it means that you're not sure. Are you sure that they deserved it, or are you sure they did not deserve it?
I wasn't sure because the alternative,
You trailed off at the end again. What did you say?
I felt the alternative was worse.
You felt the alternative to what was worse? To not sending them a letter? You didn't have to send them a letter, did you?
That's not what I'm referring to.
Right, but you didn't have to send them a letter, right?
No, I didn't.
You didn't have to send them a letter where you indicated all these, or set out your fabrications, did you?
No.
And that actually was done to make you feel better, wasn't it?
No, I was encouraged to write it.
So it wasn't your fault that you wrote it, right? Somebody else encouraged you to write it, right?
It was my choice, ultimately.
Well, but you're saying you were encouraged to do it, right?
Yes, I was.
And so again, you're not taking responsibility for doing it. You're saying somebody else told me to do it, right?
It was my choice.
Right. So then you were wrong about being encouraged to do it?
I was encouraged.
And just because somebody encourages you, does that excuse the lie?
No.
Ma'am, when we were here Thursday, one of the things that we talked about, and this is last Thursday, were these incidents involving physical violence that you claim that Mr. Alexander perpetrated on you. Things like him hitting you. Do you remember we talked about those?
Yes.
We talked about two of them specifically. We talked about one in August of 2007, and then we talked about one that you claim took place on January 22nd of 2008. Do you recall that we talked about that?
I didn't, well, not really, because I didn't consider the August 2007 one to be physical violence.
Well, but we did talk about that one. That's the one, so that we're clear, where you came over to his house uninvited, right?
No, I was
Well-
not uninvited.
Do you remember that you told us that the day before you came over to his house uninvited?
No, I called him first.
Okay, so you called him. You went over to his house, right?
Yes.
And you went to the back part of the house, right?
To the side. Yes.
Right, and you looked in through the sliding glass door, right?
No, I went around to the back after the side and then looked in through the window, not the sliding glass door.
All right, so you looked inside the house, right?
Yes.
And by the light of the television, you were able to see that he was making out, right?
Yes.
And this is the one that you told us it was Mr. Alexander and an unknown female, right?
Yes.
That was buttoning up her bra, right?
Rehooking it.
What is that?
Rehooking it.
Rehooking the bra. And the next day, which would have still been August of 2007, you went to talk to him about it, right?
Yes.
Because you felt that he owed it to you even though you weren't dating, right?
I don't know that I thought that far ahead. I just wanted to know.
Well, you did go over there, didn't you?
Yes.
And you went over there even though you weren't dating, right?
We weren't exclusively dating, right?
Well, do you remember that we talked about this last Thursday and you said, no, we weren't dating, but he was courting me. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
Okay, so you do remember that you weren't dating, right?
Well, it's about terminology. We went on dates, but we weren't boyfriend, girlfriend.
Okay, you weren't in a situation where you were boyfriend and girlfriend, right?
That's right.
You had just broken up in June of 2007, right?
Yes.
And so he's with another woman, and you feel you have the right to go confront him the next day, right?
Yes.
And this is the situation that you told us that he started chasing you down the hallway, right?
Yes.
And he grabbed your wrist.
Yes.
So that was one incident that we talked about last Thursday. Then we talked about another incident. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And that was the one on January 22nd of 2008 where you claim that he kicked you in the little finger and broke it, right?
That's right.
Well, ma'am, there was also another time that you claimed there was physical violence, and that was in early March of 2008, right?
Yes.
And this is the time that you told him that you were going to be moving to California, right?
Yes, when we argued about it.
Ma'am, I'm asking you whether or not that was the time that you told him that you were going to California? Yes or no?
That's correct.
It was a day when the both of you were going over to some sort of tax seminar, something like that, right? Do you remember
Yes.
telling me that?
Yes.
And according to you, you were in the car, and he reached over after you told him that, and he hit you on the side of the face, right?
Not immediately after I told him that, and it wasn't the face. We argued first.
Okay, the side of the head, right?
Kind of, more the neck area. John.
Okay, the neck area. He hit you, right?
Yes.
And this was in the car, right?
Yes.
While you guys were arguing or talking about it, right?
Yes.
That's a lie, isn't it?
No.
Overruled.
No,
Isn't
it
it?
isn't.
Isn't it?
No.
Well, do you remember that you kept a journal for that day, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And do you remember, I'm going to have it marked, as to that entry.
Yes.
I'm going to show you the full entry, which is Exhibit 471. If you need to compare it to the original, let me know and I will give it to you. Would you like to compare it to the original?
No, thank you.
That is a true and accurate copy of the entry of March 2nd, 2008 in your journal, correct?
Yes.
It was a Sunday, right?
Yes.
I move for the admission of Exhibit 471.
Yes, we'd like to see the original, and see what was removed from this exhibit.
Yes.
And for the record, I'm handing counsel Exhibit 242.002.
You may.
And take a look at Exhibit 242.002. Exhibit 471 is a complete entry for that particular submission, correct?
Yes,
And that is your signature at the end of that submission, right?
just my initials.
And that signifies that's the end of that particular entry, correct?
Yes,
There is another entry that deals with March 2nd of 2008, right?
yes,
And it's something that you do sometimes in your journal. You enter more than one entry per day sometimes, right?
yes.
Okay, if I may have that back. I move for the admission of exhibit number 471.
471 is admitted.
Judge, I think we have to turn the monitor on. And ma'am, this is an entry for Sunday, March 2nd of 2008, correct?
Correct.
And if the day before would have been March 1st of 2008, correct?
That's right.
And that would have been a Saturday, right?
Yes,
And the day before would have been the Friday would have been the last day of February, right?
yes.
And do you remember whether or not that was leap year?
No, I don't remember.
It could have been February 29th, though, right? If
Could
it was
have.
leap year.
Yes,
So it starts out that you're writing on Sunday and you say, well, I didn't get back to writing last night, which would have been Saturday night, right?
yes,
And so then you sort of recap what's going on. You say, let's see, Friday, which is the last day of February, right?
right.
I went over to T-Dogs. T-Dog is a name for Travis Alexander, right?
Yes, his nickname.
For a while to clean, right? And then it says shortly thereafter he went out to go rock climbing with Mimi Hall. Their third date or second and a half date, really no third, right?
Yes,
He said it went really well. And then you say, I accidentally fell asleep So I was there when he returned, right?
Yes,
So you were asleep in his house when he came back from a date, correct?
that's right.
And so if he is out on a date and you know about it, why is it that you feel that back in August of 2007, you can confront him about it? If it's the same situation.
It wasn't the same situation at this time.
Oh, at this time, you really knew that it was over then, right?
I knew we weren't getting married.
Which is different than knowing that it's getting over, right?
What do you mean?
Well, you said you knew you weren't getting married. I'm asking you whether or not the relationship was over, not whether or not you were going to get married.
It wasn't over on March 2nd.
It wasn't over at all. In fact, even after that, you continued to have intercourse with him, right?
Yes,
Where did you fall asleep?
I think it was on the love sack upstairs.
It was where?
On the love sack upstairs.
And the love sack is right outside his room, right?
Yeah, outside all 4 bedrooms.
Then you talk about what you were supposed to do, but anyway, you say, anyway, and that happened on Friday that you fell asleep, right?
If that's the day I'm referencing, yes.
Okay. Then you talk about the next morning, which is Saturday, March 1st, right?
Right,
You said that he picked you up so that you could go to the tax seminar. And that's the day that you previously told us involved this physical violence, right?
that's right.
You said, but we ended up not going. He bought me some. It says something fast. Would you agree that that's breakfast?
Yes,
And Feli's would be Filibertos, correct?
yes,
And you were grateful for it. And then you say, anyway, on the way back home, I told him my plans to move back to Wairika and that I probably wouldn't be plugging into the PPL events anymore, right?
yes,
That's what you said precipitated the argument and the fighting, right?
that's right.
Well, then you say, this will keep us both, this will help us both move on and close the gap. What gap are you talking about?
It's a figure of speech.
Oh, so what gap are you talking about?
It's not about a gap, it's a figure of speech.
Meaning what?
Meaning close the relationship between us as far as physical and that kind of thing.
So this is closing, this is saying that you are now going to be separate and apart and no more sex, right?
That was my goal.
Is that yes? Is that what that means, yes or no?
That's what that means.
You say one thing that I really miss about Arizona is that there are so many awesome Mormons my age, and I've met tons of incredible people that I've come to love and really cherish their friendship, right?
Right,
And then it says, well, Travis and I talked some more in his car. That's the place that you told us that he backhanded you, right?
that's right.
And we were able to say some things, at least I was. When you're talking about I was, you're the person who was able to tell him how you felt, right?
Yes,
And you did it in the car, right?
yes,
And it doesn't say anything there that he backhanded you, does it?
no, of course not.
Well, why not of course? You were free to write it down, right?
Yeah, but I would never do that.
I'm not asking if you would have done it, ma'am. Isn't it true that there's nothing there that says about that?
No, of course not.
You keep saying, of course not. You were free to do it, weren't you?
Yeah, but I wouldn't have.
But you didn't do it, right?
No, of course not.
Is this the same like with the interview with the detective, where you could have told him the truth, but you chose not to?
No, this is different, but that's
It's
what
the
I
same
did.
sort of circumstance with the detective, right? You could have told Detective Flores everything, right?
That much is true, yes.
But you had a reason why you didn't tell the detective that, right?
Yes,
And so now you're telling me, well, I could have written more here, but you have a different reason, right?
a similar reason, but different.
You had a different reason, right?
Yes,
So if it isn't in there and you're telling me that it happened, then there's an issue as to whether or not it did happen, isn't there?
not to me, it happened to me.
Of course not to you. I'm asking you whether or not there's the appearance, at least, since you didn't write anything about it in there, that it never happened, right?
Argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Didn't happen, did it, ma'am?
Objection argumentative. May we approach?
You may approach.
Objection argumentative. May we approach? 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 Obje
man, you lied about the fact that Mr. Alexander backhanded you while you were in the car, didn't you?
Again, objection argumentative, Judge.
Overruled, you may answer.
No, I didn't lie.
So then you write, and it was the beginning of a bittersweet closure, right?
That's right.
And closure meaning you were done, you both were going to move on, right?
Yes.
He is my best friend in the whole, is that wide world? Is that what it says?
Whole world.
So he is your best friend in the whole world. And you're saying that about an individual who just hit you, right?
Yes.
That speaks against that, doesn't it?
Objection argumentative.
That was the
Sustained.
goal.
Sustained.
It is so unimaginable to live without him, but it has to be this way. It will be better for both, I think, right?
Right.
And you're talking about moving away so that you won't have any contact with him, right?
Physical contact, yes.
Oh, so you don't mind the telephone, it's the physical contact that's the problem, right?
It had been a problem in our relationship.
That's not what I'm
So-
asking you. I'm asking you whether or not the physical problem was the physical contact was the problem.
It was part of the problem.
And it's okay, though, if you're up there in Wairika, to have phone sex, though, right?
Not technically, it's not okay.
When you say technically, what does that mean? I'm talking about you're the one that is telling us it will be better for both of you, this distance. So is phone sex okay or not?
It's not okay for our religion.
I'm not asking about your religion. I'm asking, well, let me do it this way. You keep talking about the Mormon religion, but you can't even tell me about going to family home evening, can you?
I had to work on Monday nights.
Ma'am, can you tell me about family home evening?
Yes.
I thought you couldn't yesterday. All right, then let's talk about family home, or Thursday. Let's talk about family home evening. It starts at about 7 o'clock, doesn't it?
Depends on the ward,
Yes or no? Doesn't it start about 7 o'clock?
I guess.
Sustained.
And it can go until about 8 o'clock, right? It's a 1-hour meeting, right?
It depends.
It depends on what?
The ward, the activity.
Okay, how about your ward? When would it go to?
I think it was about an hour. I don't remember the start time.
So if it started at 7, it would go to 8. If it started at 7:30, it would go to 8:30, right?
Typically, yes.
And afterwards, there would be activities, right?
FHE was the activity.
So there were no activities afterwards where the young people got together then, according to you, the ones that you went to.
There might have been.
When you say there might have been, weren't you there to know? I thought you said you were very Mormon.
I usually worked on Monday night.
So you don't know then, is what you're telling me. Why don't you just tell me you do or you don't? Just tell me either way.
I told you what I know.
So you know that you don't really know what happens, is what you're telling me, right?
Objection, compound question.
Restate your question.
You don't know what happens at family home evenings, right?
I only know what's happened at the ones
Yes
that
or
I've
no, ma'am?
attended.
I'm not asking you. Yes or no? You don't really know what happened at family home
I'm
evenings,
trying to
right?
answer your question, but you keep over-talking me.
I'm going to object to that comment by the defendant. She should be instructed to answer.
Sustained. Can you answer that?
I can't.
The question.
Then it talks about what happened in terms of the physical contact between you and Mr. Alexander, doesn't it?
Part of the physical contact.
Pardon?
Part of it.
It doesn't say part there, does it?
No.
It says what happened, doesn't it?
It says part of what happened.
Does it say, this is part of what happened? Is that, it doesn't say that there, ma'am, does it?
Objection, ask and answer argumentative.
Overruled, you may answer.
Will you repeat that?
It doesn't say, this is part of what happened. It just lays out what happened, doesn't it?
It lays out what I wrote.
And which is what happened, right?
Yes, that did happen.
Okay? And it says, I leaned in to give him a hug and a kiss on the cheek, right?
That's right.
Doesn't talk anything about getting hit on the side of the head with his hand, does it?
No, he'd already apologized.
Yes or no? Does it say that there?
I said no.
And then you leaned in and you did it to say goodbye and he turned his head so that our lips met, right?
Yes.
The meeting there was not a hand to the side of your head, it was two lips meeting, right?
Yes.
And then, according to you, it was a series of 3 very tender, very slow, very soft kisses, right?
That's right.
Doesn't talk about anything with the backhand, does it?
Of course not.
Well, you keep saying, of course not. Please take a look at it. Don't say, of course not, when it doesn't say that there.
Objection, she answered his question.
Sustained. Next question.
You love his lips, right? That's what it says.
That's what it says.
And it doesn't say, I love the backhand. It says, I love his lips, correct?
Of course.
When you keep saying, of course, man, we keep going back to this thing that you keep indicating that there's something there when there isn't. These are your written words, right?
That's right.
Pardon?
That's right.
And you were the person who set down your version of the events that occurred in that car, right?
Only the parts I wanted to remember.
Ma'am, does this say this is only parts of what I wanted to remember? It doesn't say that there, does it?
No, I was just answering your question.
My question is, does it include what you wrote, your version of the events inside the car? Yes or no?
Part of them, yes.
You keep saying part. We keep going back and forth, ma'am. This is what you wrote, correct?
That's correct.
It doesn't say that it's just a part of a larger entry, does it?
No.
Then you say that you went inside, you fixed your makeup, and you went to Starbucks, got Travis a Frappuccino. You are now out of the car, right?
Yes.
And you're going to get Mr. Alexander a Frappuccino, right?
That's correct.
And then you took it to his house, right?
Yes.
You drove, right?
Yes.
He dropped you off at your house, right?
Yes.
And the purpose of going back was so that you could pick up some items that he had been storing, right? And so
Yes.
that you could load them in your car, right?
Yes.
But instead of that, you ended up being naughty again, right?
That's right.
So much for closing that gap, right?
Yeah.
And this was as part of this same event, if you will, where your lips met and you had 3 kisses, right?
Yes, part of the makeup.
Right. And then you talk about that being another advantage to you moving away since you guys can't stay away from each other, right?
That's right.
Seems like you were into the sex as much as he was, right?
Yes.
Says that you helped him clean up a little bit more for his UFC party, right?
That's right.
That UFC party would have been that Saturday night, right?
Yes.
And you say that you've never really been into that kind of activity, but you appreciate it, right?
That's right.
And then we have an issue or an individual by the name of Lonnie that's mentioned in the next paragraph, right?
Yes.
And Lonnie is the same individual that we discussed Thursday involving his baptism and the fact that you missed it because you went to have sex with Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes, the same Lonnie.
You actually saw the UFC party at Lonnie's house, right?
The UFC event, yes.
Right. Then, that evening you get home, and Travis called, correct?
That's correct.
What time did he call?
I don't remember.
And you spoke, according to that, for an hour and a half, until both of you were sleepy, right?
That's right.
Well, it does say that, right?
That's right.
And you made some jokes about Facebook. You talked about how it was if you guys would have children and how their lips would be such that Angelina Jolie would cry, right?
Right.
And it was just funny, fun talk, right?
Yes.
No indication that you talked about moving there, right?
No.
No indication at all that you talked about any physical violence whatsoever, right?
That's right.
And then you write, I love him, right?
That's right.
And that, at the very bottom, is your signature, right?
Yes.
So, this entry does not corroborate what you told us happened in the car, right?
Right, that's the goal.
That's the what?
The goal.
Did I ask you if it was the goal?
No,
I asked you whether or not it corroborated it. It doesn't, does it?
no,
With regard to that supposed injury that you claim that you received, you didn't call the police, did you?
no,
You didn't tell anybody about it, right?
no,
There is no corroboration anywhere, including your journal, that it even happened, right?
that's right.
All we have is your word, right?
That's right. And my
Pardon?
injuries.
Pardon?
My injuries.
And your injuries?
Right.
Let me see a photograph of it, ma'am, so that we can put this to bed.
What are you talking about?
Well, you said that your injuries. Did you take a photograph of the injuries when he hit you?
No, I was referring to other injuries.
I'm talking about that day. Do you have any problem acknowledging that we're talking about this particular day when you're in the car?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Are there photographs of them that we don't know about?
No,
There is no photographic evidence, there's no documentary evidence, and there's no anecdotal evidence, i.e. talking to anybody about it, is there?
I would hope not. Not to my
Well,
knowledge.
I'm not asking you if what you hope, I'm asking you whether or not there is. There
Not
isn't,
to my
is there?
knowledge.
Pardon?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, your knowledge is what's important to us. Is there any such items out there that we could look at?
Asked and answered.
All right.
Items, no, but as far as telling
the
other
answer is-
people,
No, right?
as far as items go,
I'm
that's the
talking about,
answer.
are there any photographs?
No photos.
Aside from this writing, are there any other writings?
No,
Is there a police report?
no,
Is there a medical report?
no.
But we do have some text messages, don't we? Let's take a look at them about what happened that night. Take a look at Exhibit 473 and 472. They're basically the same thing, right?
Right,
Except one of them does not include Mr. Alexander's response, right?
that's right.
So this is the give and take between you and Mr. Alexander the evening of March 1st of 2008, right?
Yes,
And in fact, you previously acknowledged that the time that's written there, that's actually is part of the message, is 7 hours too fast, right?
yes,
Move to the admission of Exhibit 472.
We approach.
You may.
72 is admitted.
Take a look at the conversation that you had with Mr. Alexander on March 1st of 2008 at 9:28 p.m. Do you see that?
Yes,
And that's you sending him a text, right?
that's right.
And you say, "Hi, sweetie," correct?
Yes,
And this is supposedly after he popped you in the side of the head, right?
it was. We'd already made up.
Ma'am, this is after you claimed that he popped you in the side of the head, right?
Yes,
And then you say, "I hope you're enjoying your party." You're talking about the UFC party that you previously referenced in exhibit number 471, which is your journal entry, right?
yes,
At least we know that those correspond and are corroborated, right?
yes,
And when you say "sweetie," that also corresponds to the tone of exhibit number 471, where you talk about his lips and how much you love him, right?
that's right.
And then you're asking to borrow the BMW for church tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Why are you asking to borrow his car?
I can't remember that particular reason, but we were swapping cars back and forth during that time.
Same thing with regard to January 21st of 2008, when you were driving his car, right?
I think I was driving my car that day.
Pardon?
I believe I was driving my car that day.
Do you remember that the text messages talked about the family home evening and how you needed to go pick up the car? Do you remember that?
Yes.
So it's sort of the same issue, right?
Sort of.
And if you drove his BMW to church, that would mean that he would be without a car, right?
No, he would drive mine.
Okay, so why is it that you want to drive his BMW to church? Is it just to show off or what?
No, my car was better than his, so no, that wasn't why.
Well, then what's the reason why you want to drive the BMW?
It's possible that while I used to
Well, I'm
drive,
not asking you to, well, it's possible. I want you to tell me what.
He asked her why, and she's answered.
Objection, speculation, non-responsive.
All right, restate your question.
Ma'am, why did you want to borrow his BMW, if you know?
the only time I borrowed his BMW for church or Monday nights or evenings was so that I could drive the sister missionaries around because my car didn't fit everyone.
So is that what you're saying then, that you wanted to drive the missionaries around?
That would have been why.
Okay, so I wanted to know. I only need it for that day, and I'll bring it back before the day is over, right?
Yes,
What time did the services start the next day?
I think my ward started at, well, it was always changing. It changed twice that year, so it was either 12 or 1 o'clock p.m.
And how long did it go?
3 hours.
Then, his response is at 9:32, which is what?
Of course.
And then, at 9:58, what do you say to him?
I say, thanks, baby, you're the best.
And he was the best, wasn't he?
Best at what?
I don't know, you're the one that wrote it, why don't you tell me?
I wrote that because it made him feel good.
Oh, so you're lying to him then. He's not the best, you just want to make him feel good.
I wasn't lying to him.
Well, didn't you just tell me that you wrote that because you wanted him to feel good, right?
That's right.
The implication with that is that he wasn't the best, that you did not believe that he was the best.
The best at what?
I don't know, you wrote it, right?
Yes.
So why don't you tell me what you meant?
I wanted him to feel good.
Okay, I know you wanted him to feel good. So the only thing that we can take from that, given what you've answered, is that you were lying to him. He was not the best.
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Sustained.
And if you do tell him that he's the best, isn't this the same individual that you claim has just hit you in the side of the head, right?
More the neck, but that's right.
Okay, he's the same individual that hit you on the side of the neck, right?
Yes.
And now you're telling him that he's the best, right?
Yes.
Do you see how that's inconsistent or no?
Objection is argumentative.
Overruled.
It wasn't inconsistent with our pattern.
I'm not asking you if it was inconsistent with your pattern. I'm asking whether or not you can see that you're telling him he's the best after you claim he's hit you on the side of the neck.
Objection, ask and answer. She just answered the same question.
Overruled, you may answer.
It wasn't inconsistent with the apology that followed.
I'm not asking about the apology that followed after this, or that may have followed. I'm asking, isn't it true that it doesn't make sense that you're telling him the best after he hit you at the side of the neck? It doesn't make sense, does it?
Objection, Your Honor. Ask and answer.
Overruled, you may answer.
It makes sense because he apologized.
So is there an apology that came afterwards? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
And are you saying that it's part of these text messages that the apology came afterwards?
no, but it was part of the 3 tender kisses.
It's what?
Part of the 3 tender kisses that I wrote about.
Oh,
in my
I see.
journal.
So when you write that there were 3 tender kisses, which is exhibit number 471, you're telling us that, yeah, well, that's right there, but I just didn't include the fact that he hit me on the side of the neck, right?
Of course not.
Of course not what? You did not include it in there, did you?
No,
Ma'am, with the same thing with regard to, now we're just talking about the injuries that you claim that you've received. With regard to the injury to the finger, you claim that that happened on January 22nd of 2008, right?
that's right.
The photograph shows that you don't have an injury to the finger as of May 15th of 2008, doesn't it?
That's not what the photograph shows.
So you're claiming that that photograph shows, and let me just show it to you so that we know what we're talking about. Exhibit 453, you're claiming that that shows the injury to your finger, right?
They're bent, yes. It's
So
hard
you're
to see.
saying that, yes, it does show the injury to your left ring finger like you showed us here in court, right? Yeah, yes or no, ma'am? You put up the finger in court, remember you did that? And you're saying that this is the same finger with the same injury, right?
That is the same.
Do you remember, again, talking about whether or not there's anything that's corroborated? You didn't call the police on this, right? The
That's
finger
right.
issue, right?
Of course.
Of course, yes, or of course not?
Of course not.
So you didn't, that's a no, right?
No, I did not.
And you didn't go to the hospital to get any medical care, so there's no paperwork to show us on it, right?
That's right.
But there is some other evidence that points to the fact that it happened after January 21 of 2008, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
I don't think so.
Well, you had a conversation with Detective Flores. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And do you remember that he looked at your hand?
Yes.
And remember what you told him?
Yes.
And you told him that it happened during the time that these 2 people came in, right?
Yes.
And that then you showed him your finger that was bent, right?
Yes.
It was bent just like you showed us here in court, right?
Yes.
So your prior statements indicate that this injury to your finger didn't happen on January 21 of 2008. It happened on June 4th of 2008, right?
Yes.
And in terms of the injury that you claimed, or the physical violence that occurred in August of 2007, you claimed all he did was grab your hand, right? After he chased you, right?
Yeah, he caught my wrist.
He grabbed you in the wrist, right?
Yes.
And other than minor pain, there's nothing else associated with it, right?
It wasn't painful at all.
And in fact, but you were scared though, right?
Yes.
And in fact, that's one of the things that you related to June 4th, when you killed him. You sort of flashed back to that, right?
It was a split-second decision.
Is that yes or no?
I can't say I had a flashback.
Well, can you say that when you testified here in court that you referenced that specific incident as a triggering point involving the murder?
That's correct.
And so that means that you thought about it, right?
I must have.
Pardon?
Yeah, it went through my mind, but it wasn't a flashback.
Okay, so you have a problem with the word flashback, right?
Yes.
So it went through your mind, right?
Yes.
You thought about it, right?
Yes,
And however, the incident in August of 2007, you said didn't hurt, right?
that's right.
And he stopped once he grabbed your wrist, right?
Stopped what?
Whatever he was doing.
Can you be more specific?
No, can you be more specific? What happened after he grabbed your wrist?
After he grabbed my wrist, he pulled me close to him, and he apologized, and he took me in his arms and squeezed me.
Okay, so this event where you're going down the hallway, he grabs you by the wrist, he then apologizes to you, right?
Yes,
And you're saying that just because there's this event where he goes down the hall and he grabs you and he apologizes you, is the event that you're thinking about at the time that he's coming after you on June 4th of 2008, as you claim?
it's the event I thought about when I decided to go right instead of left.
But isn't this the event where he is screaming, according to you, very loudly, right?
Which event?
The June 4th, 2008 event, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
On June 4th of 2008, you claim he was very angry with you, right?
Very.
And he was nude, right?
Yes,
He was coming after you, right?
yes,
And he's going after you down the hallway, right, as you're running, right?
yes,
And this event, on June 4th of 2008, you say, as he's doing that, you remember the event of August of 2007, right?
yes,
And in August of 2007, the consequence of that was that he hugged you and he apologized, right?
after he grabbed my wrist. Yes.
Okay, ma'am, fine. He grabs your wrist, he hugs you, and he apologizes, right?
Grabs my wrist and pulls me toward
Okay,
him.
grabs your wrist, pulls you, apologizes, right?
Yes,
You didn't have any fear when he was apologizing, did you?
yes, I was stiff with fear.
When he was apologizing?
Yes.
But nothing happened after that, right?
You mean nothing dangerous?
I mean, did he hit you after that?
No,
Did he throw you on the floor?
no,
Did he injure you in any way, shape, or form?
no.
He was just angry according to you, and he was apologizing at the same time, apparently.
I don't know about if his contemporaneous, he was angry and then he apologized.
Okay, so he's angry. And he's angry when he grabs your wrist, right?
I don't know.
Well, you were there. You just told us he was angry, right?
Yes,
So he was angry. Was he or wasn't he angry when he grabbed your wrist?
I don't know what his state of mind was when he chose to grab my wrist.
Okay, when you say that he was angry, when do you tell us, or when do you form the opinion that he's angry involving the incident in August of 2007? When do you form that opinion that he's angry?
One, when he let out a scream and palmed the wall down in the laundry room. And then two, when he ran upstairs and started banging his head on the linen closet and repeating something over and over about himself.
Okay, with regard to that, he actually, in that incident in August of 2007, it started downstairs, right?
Yes,
And that's something that you're thinking about back on June 4th of 2008, about an incident that happened downstairs, right?
no,
Well, it's part of the same incident, isn't it?
yes,
Where he ran away from you, right?
no,
Well, wait a minute. You said it started downstairs on the washer, right?
yes,
And then he went upstairs. He ran upstairs, is your term, right?
yes,
You stayed downstairs, right?
yes, for a few moments.
Yes, you did stay downstairs, didn't you?
Yes,
You let him go to do whatever he was going to do upstairs, right?
yes,
You didn't know what he was going to do, right?
no,
You weren't afraid at that point, were you?
a little bit.
Well, if you're afraid, then why go after him?
I wanted to know what that sound was.
Well, again, just because you hear a sound and you're afraid, you still think that you want to go investigate?
Yeah, he'd never hit me at that point.
Well, I'm not asking you if he had hit you at that point. Did I?
No,
I'm asking you your state of mind, which is what we want to know, right? This is what you've been
Right.
talking about, right?
yes,
And you're downstairs, your state of mind is that he's angry, right?
my state of mind was that I was concerned. My conclusion was that he was angry.
Okay. your state of mind is now different than your conclusion, right?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay, so your conclusion that he was angry was formed downstairs, right?
Yes.
And this conclusion that he was angry was with you when you went upstairs, right?
Yes.
This conclusion that he was angry did not instill any fear in you, did it?
When he palmed the wall, it scared me.
Pardon?
When he hit the door frame, with his palm, it scared me.
Was this downstairs?
Yes, in the laundry room.
All right, and when you were downstairs and he strikes his palm against something inanimate, you get scared, right?
Yeah, the impact.
So now your state of mind is that you are scared and that he's angry, right?
Yes, I'm concerned for him also.
You're also concerned, right? You didn't pick up the phone to call 911, did you?
No.
So there's no corroboration of that incident from that, right?
No.
What damage did he cause to the door?
Which door?
The one that he hit, that's the only door that we're talking about, right? Do you know of a different door that he hit?
Yes.
Didn't you just tell me that he hit one door?
I said he palmed the door frame.
Okay, so he hit the door frame. Was there any damage to the door frame downstairs when you guys were having this fight back in August of 2007 when you had the state of mind that you were afraid? What? Tell me. Was there a photograph of it?
No.
So we don't have any corroboration of that, right?
That's right.
You didn't tell anybody about this incident, did you?
No.
So nobody knows about it, right?
I don't think so.
Well, how would they know about it if you didn't tell them?
I don't know who he told.
So you think he was walking around telling people these things? Did you ever hear anybody say that he was saying these things?
I think I did.
Okay, who? Give me a name.
They were in his text messages.
Who's that?
They were in his text messages.
In his text messages to you, he said, I hit the door?
No.
In his text messages to who then?
Oh, I didn't say hit the door. I meant referencing that event.
I'm talking about hitting the door. We having problems communicating here? I'm talking about hitting
Yes.
the door. He did tell that to somebody?
No, yes, we're having problems communicating.
Did he tell somebody about it? Yes or no?
About hitting the door
The door, yes,
frame?
that's what we're talking about.
Because he didn't hit the door downstairs, he hit the door frame. The door was open. And I
All
don't
right.
know if he told anyone or not.
Hitting the door frame. Do you have a name of somebody that Mr. Alexander told that he hit the door frame?
No,
So there's no corroboration there, right?
that's right.
And you never told anybody that you were scared or anything like that, right?
No,
So we don't have any corroboration there, though, right?
that's right.
But you were not scared enough to stay downstairs, right?
That's right.
You decided to go upstairs, right?
Yes,
And you go upstairs, and you're hearing a thump, thump, thump noise, right?
yes.
And the curiosity gets the better of you, right?
Concern.
Okay, the concern gets the better of you, even though you are what? Are you mildly scared or no?
I'm alarmed, I'm stunned.
Okay, you're alarmed and stunned. As you go upstairs, you're alarmed and you're stunned. Why are you alarmed and stunned if you don't know what's going on upstairs?
Because the only other thing he'd ever hit before was my car.
Okay. So you're alarmed and you're stunned, and you're in this house where you're hearing this thump, 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 right?
That's right.
It never occurred to you to call 911, did it?
No,
So then you go upstairs, and he's not any danger to you up there, is he?
Objection, cause for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you perceive any danger to you?
not immediately.
I'm asking, when you got there, did you perceive any danger to you?
After I got there, yes.
When you got there is my question, ma'am. Did you perceive any danger to you?
Objection, that's an answer.
Sustained.
So
Not
you-
immediately. Oh,
So
I'm
you
sorry.
get there, right? And he's thumping his head against what?
The linen closet door.
And this is the door that is next to this is the closet that's next to the sink, right?
That's right.
And if we're using the directional, that's north of the sink, right?
Yes.
And it's down the hallway where he ended up finally with his throat slashed, right? That's the same hallway we're talking about, right?
I don't know. It's the same hallway, but I don't know about the other part of your question.
So you don't know about where, you've seen the photographs, haven't you?
Yes, part of them.
You were here in court when we showed them, right?
Yes.
Do you have any doubt, or do you have reason to doubt that those photographs are not true and accurate depictions of Mr. Alexander? Doors opened or closed on that closet?
The linen closet?
The one that we're talking about, the only one we're talking about, ma'am. Yes.
The door was closed.
And so he's banging his head up against those doors, right?
That's right.
And those are the kind of doors that are not super tight so that there's this very small clearance to them, right? They're the kind of doors that are somewhat flimsy, aren't they?
Sustained.
These doors, ma'am, are they real? You've opened those doors before, right?
Yes.
And they don't have a lock to them, right?
I don't think so.
And you think that a closet door, it opens, you think that this particular closet door may have a lock?
I don't remember it having a lock.
Okay. And so is it the kind that is accordion or is it the kind that has one handle on it?
What do you mean by accordion?
Well, when it opens up on both sides to each
Oh,
side.
it's just a door with a handle.
It's just a door, right?
Yes.
And the door was closed, right?
Yes.
And he's banging his head up against the door, right?
Yes.
He's not doing anything to you. He's not talking to you. He's actually went away from the confrontation, right?
Yes.
You're the one that's chasing him down, aren't you?
I didn't chase him.
Okay, you're the one that's going after him, right?
Okay.
Well, no, not okay. You're the one that's going up there to... He's already left, hasn't he?
No. He's still in the house.
No, he hasn't left and gone upstairs? Are you having problems? You just told us that he went upstairs.
Objection, argumentative, Judge.
Sustained. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the afternoon recess at this time. Please be back in the designated area at 3:25. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.
Please stand for the jury.
Please be seated. You may step down. Council approach, please. Thank you. Please be seated. Please take the stand.
Please stand for the jury.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Martinez, you may continue.
And how long was Mr. Alexander banging his head up against that door before something happened, before the next thing happened?
I guess if I had to guess, maybe a minute, minute and a half.
So for a minute and a half, he's doing this, and you're just standing there, right?
No, I was sitting on the washing machine downstairs when it began.
I see. So for a minute and a half, you hear it, and then you go upstairs? Is that
No,
right?
I'd say from the time he stopped. I heard the sound, then I jumped off the washing machine and went upstairs to find out what was going on. Found him in the
Well,
bedroom.
let me do it this way. As you're walking up the stairs, do you still hear him banging his head up against the door?
Yeah, I'm following the
As
sound.
you go into his room, do you still hear
Yes.
him banging his head up against the door? And then as you take a right and go down the hallway, is he still banging his head up against the door?
Yes,
Do you get close to him when he's doing this?
yes.
How far away do you get?
I'd say pretty close, maybe from here to this thermos right here.
And while you're standing there, he continues to bang his head. From the time you stood there, how long did he continue to bang his head?
Till I said his name.
I know. How long in terms of time?
I couldn't say exact seconds, but I tentatively walked up to him. I'd never seen him act
When
like
you
that.
said tentatively,
Yes.
you walk up to him, and from the time that you get near him to where that pitcher of water is, how much time elapses from the time that you get to where the pitcher is to the time that he stops banging his head? I'm talking in terms of time.
I didn't let it go on long before I said his name, and he stopped.
Pardon?
I didn't let it go on for a prolonged period of time before I said his name. I wanted him to stop.
Okay, so
His
how long
name.
before you said his name?
I don't know, as far as seconds, it wasn't long.
It was what?
It wasn't long.
I know, but you said seconds and I didn't hear the first part of
I
it.
said I don't know as far as seconds.
Oh, okay. And so you said his name, and at that point, what does he do?
He spun and faced me. He had the eyes of a madman, and he screamed, "What?" really loud.
Right, and so this is, what you're telling us is the same thing that you saw back on June 4th of 2008. You sort of almost described it the same way, that he had the eyes of a madman, right?
Objection, this characterizes their testimony.
Rephrase.
Ma'am, you told us that he was in the shower, right? On June 4th of 2008, right?
Yes.
That you dropped the camera, right?
Yes.
And that he got very, very upset, right?
Yes.
And he said some things to you, right?
Yes.
And you were able to see his face, right?
Yes.
And his face was like that of a madman, right?
Yes.
So let's get back to August of 2008. At that point, you said he had this same kind of look, right?
Yes, it's 2007.
Right, but it was the same kind of look, right?
The same, very similar, yes.
Right. And so then what happens? He has this look in his eye. What do?
I turned and bolted down the hallway.
You ran, right?
Yes.
But he's able to catch you, right?
Yes.
He catches you where?
Right up around the threshold of the carpet.
Right, where he ended up with his head, with the slitting of the throat, right?
I don't know.
You saw the photographs, though, right?
I saw.
And you saw the big blotch of blood that was there on the breachway there between the tile and the carpet, right?
Yes.
Is that about the area where he caught you?
Yes.
And is that where he grabs you by the wrist?
Yes.
And he grabs you there by the wrist, and does he still have this look of a madman or not?
I didn't look.
Were you looking down, or what were you doing?
I don't know if I might have had my eyes closed. I was still not looking at him.
Pardon?
I was not looking at him.
Okay. And then he hugs you, or what does he do?
He yanked me toward him and put his arms around me and squeezed.
Was it a very hard squeeze?
It was a firm squeeze, but it wasn't too hard.
And then he apologizes, right?
Yes.
And then this confrontation is over, right?
No.
In terms of the physical aspect, the confrontation is over, right?
Yes.
So there may be some arguing afterwards, or there may be some words exchanged, but in terms of him being physical, according to you, that's where it ends, right?
That's right.
And this is the event that you tell us goes through your head as you're running down the hallway in 2008, right?
Well, when I went
Yes
to
or
make
no?
the decision, no.
Yes or no?
No.
Okay, didn't you testify on direct examination that that's what you were thinking about when he was after you on June 4th of 2008? Isn't that what you said?
Characterizes their testimony.
Overruled, you may answer.
At one point, yes.
Okay. So if this is the, and I know you don't like the word flashback or the thought, but if this is the flashback or the thought that you have on June 4th of 2008, then you know nothing's going to happen because nothing happened before, right?
That's not right.
There was a different ending back in August of 2007. Did he hurt you more?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So he didn't hurt you more, though, right?
He didn't hurt me at all in August.
And if he didn't hurt you at all, to use your term, in August, and this is something that goes through your head, then the expectation would be that he wouldn't hurt you in 2008, and there's no reason to be afraid of him, right?
Not after he broke my finger, hit me, and almost killed me by choking
Pardon?
me unconscious.
Pardon?
It was not that.
What did you say?
Said not after he broke my finger, hit me, and choked me unconscious by
And
2008.
this is the same finger that you told Detective Flores happened on June 4th, right? 2008.
That's right.
That's the same finger that you're saying is the reason that you believe something else was going to happen, right?
Part of the reason, yes.
Right. And the other reason was what?
He had choked me till I lost consciousness.
And when was this event?
The week that I moved.
And that would be the week of April of 2008, right?
Yes.
Was this while you were living with him, or staying with him for the week, or some other time?
It was during that time,
And was this before or after your mother came out there?
after.
And during this event where he choked you, there are no medical reports, are there?
No,
There's no police report that backs up what you're saying, is there?
no,
There is no one that you told back then that backs up this supposed event, right?
I did not tell them that's why the bruises were.
Pardon?
I didn't tell them about that.
Right. So there, all we have to go on is your word, correct?
That's correct.
And,
We're having some technical difficulties with FTR. We're going to need to take just a
Okay.
momentary break.
were telling us, ma'am, about the incident where you claimed that he choked you before you left to move back to Wairika, correct?
Yes.
And when did that happen?
It would have been the first week of April 2008.
And you were at his house?
Yes.
And what were you doing?
We were having a discussion that led to an argument, and then it led to that.
What were you having a discussion about?
Several things. We were first discussing his dating life, and then we were discussing my dating life. And then prior to that, he was a little bit upset because I had re-emphasized the pamphlet that I gave him. Because I was
I'm not
thinking-
asking you about his demeanor.
Judge, she's asking what the discussion was about. She's explaining it.
Objection non-responsive. I just want the topics.
Ask another question.
And during this discussion, where was it that it took place?
in his bedroom.
And it escalated, according to you, into a point where he threw you down, right?
Yes.
And when you were down, that's when he choked you, right?
Yes.
And how long did this confrontation last?
I don't know.
Were you able to get up afterwards, or did he let you up?
I woke up and he was not on top of me anymore.
And he was what?
Not on top of me anymore.
Didn't call the police, did you?
No.
You didn't get any medical care, did you?
No.
You didn't tell anybody, correct?
I did tell someone.
Who did you tell, ma'am?
I told Matt.
You told Matt McCartney, right? That day you told Matt McCartney?
No.
You told Matt McCartney when? June 2nd of 2008?
No.
When did you tell Matt McCartney?
I saw him a few days later and he called me out on all the bruises that were on me.
And with regard to his statements, do you know why it is that when asked about that particular incident, he claimed no knowledge of it? Do you know anything about that?
Hearsay, improper.
Overruled, you may answer.
Do you know why he would claim no knowledge of that?
Objection calls for speculation why he would claim.
Sustained.
So, you don't know whether or not he, when interviewed, whether or not he admitted to knowing about that.
Objection is called for hearsay, Judge, and it's the same question. May we approach?
You may. You may proceed.
Ma'am, you've spoken with Mr. McCartney, haven't you?
Yes.
And in fact, he's visited you in jail, right?
Yes.
And in fact, he's even tape recorded you, hasn't he?
Yes.
And you've also had telephone conversations with him, haven't you?
Yes.
And in fact, you and he have discussed this issue about whether or not you had bruising around the neck, right?
Not during the jail visits, but yes.
But you have discussed it, haven't you?
Yes.
And have you discussed whether or not he has spoken to any law enforcement individuals regarding the bruises on the neck? Have you and he had that conversation?
What was the question?
Whether you and Mr. McCartney have discussed whether or not he has told anyone about this supposed bruising around the neck.
I believe we had a discussion somewhat like that.
And when was that discussion?
I don't remember. After
it-
the incident.
Pardon?
After the incident.
Where was this conversation? Was it over the phone or was it in person?
It was over the phone.
And how much time after the incident was this conversation?
Just days, I think.
And so, if it was over the telephone then, you would agree that he would not be able to see whether or not there would be any makeup that was applied to these supposed injuries, right?
No, not for that conversation.
No, I'm not talking about any other conversation. We're talking about one conversation on the telephone, right?
Yes,
And you said that was 2 to 3 days after this alleged incident happened, right?
no, it was after he called me out on the bruises.
Pardon?
It was after he confronted me about them.
Well, you had a telephone conversation, and you said that this happened during the time that you were at Mr. Alexander's home before you left, right?
Yes,
And you then left, correct?
that week, yes.
Right. And during 2 to 3 days later, while you were still at Mr. Alexander's, you had a telephone conversation, right? With Mr. McCartney.
That's not the one I was referring to.
But you did have some conversations with Mr. McCartney, right?
Yes.
Is that when you told Mr. McCartney about your injuries around the neck?
Are you talking about 2 or 3 days after the incident?
You told me that you had a telephone call with him 2 to 3 days after the incident. Do you remember telling me that?
I thought you were talking about the incident where he confronted me.
I'm asking you about a telephone conversation, ma'am. That's all I'm asking you about. Are we clear now?
Yes,
This telephone conversation that you told me about, you indicated that you told Mr. McCartney about this bruising, right?
yes,
And my question to you is, if you have this telephone conversation with him 2 to 3 days after this supposed choking, he would not have been able to see any marks on your neck, right?
no, I was in Wairika by then.
Ma'am, if it's a telephone conversation and you call Mr. McCartney, isn't it true that he wouldn't be able to see your injuries because it's over the telephone?
Yes,
So then you leave to go to Wairika, right?
when?
When you left. When was that?
Left from where?
From Arizona. When was that?
No, I went to see Matt after Arizona.
You went to see Mr. McCartney when?
I stopped in to see Matt after I left Arizona with the U-Haul truck.
I understand that, but when did you leave Arizona?
Let's see. I believe it was 2 or 3 days after he did that.
Okay, so about the time of the telephone call is the time that you leave Arizona, right?
No, you're still fixated on the phone call. I misinterpreted what you had said earlier. There was no phone call 2 or 3 days later with the discussion of bruises.
There was no telephone call now, right?
No,
Okay, so why did you tell me there was a telephone call before?
I was referring to a few days after he confronted me about the bruises, which would put it many days after the fact.
So you're saying that there was no telephone call to Mr. McCartney while you were here in Arizona, correct?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's no discussion.
There was a telephone call, but there was no discussion, right?
I'm not saying there was a telephone call either. I'm just saying there was no discussion.
Well, you did reference a telephone call for me previously, right?
Yes,
And this telephone call you told me was 2 or 3 days later, right? Do you remember telling me that earlier in this conversation?
yes, but I'm confused about what
Yes.
later you mean.
Okay, so you did tell me about it then, right?
Yes,
But now you're telling me that no, there was no telephone call 2 or 3 days later to Mr. McCartney after this supposed choking incident, right?
that's correct.
But you did leave Arizona some days after the choking incident, right?
Yes.
And that would have been what, April 7th, April 8th? Is that when you left?
I remember it by days of the week, but not dates.
Okay, what day of the week was it?
It occurred on a Tuesday, the choking, and I think I left town on Thursday or Friday.
All right, so you left 2 or 3 days later, right?
I believe so, yes.
Well, when you keep saying you believe so, it sort of leads me to believe that when you said Wednesday or Thursday, that you really don't know. So, did you leave Wednesday or Thursday?
Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, it was after the event, but I didn't stay like a whole week beyond that or anything.
So then you drive, and is this the time that you turn around and come back, or this is the time you actually leave?
That part, I don't remember. I'd have to look at dates, text messages, things like that.
So you don't remember if that's when you came back then, right?
I just know that,
So the answer is no, right?
no, that's not, I'm thinking probably not.
But you don't know,
Not for sure.
okay? So if you did come back, then you would have stayed more time there at Mr. Alexander's house, right?
Yes,
And then you do take off and then you go up towards California, right?
yes.
And you take the 10, So-
First the 60, then the 10.
right? And you proceed to Southern California, correct?
That's correct.
What time of the day did you leave?
I don't remember.
What time of the day did you get to Southern California?
I remember meeting up with Gus
Right.
in the late afternoon.
So what time would that be then?
I guess if I had to guess, it would be like 5 or 6. The sun was still up. It's June, or I mean April. I don't know. The sun was still up, but it was like low, like at an angle. So it'd be
6
late afternoon,
So 6 o'clock then, right? That be fair?
something like that.
And then you're there, how long are you there with Mr. Searcy?
I don't know, an hour maybe, a couple hours.
And then do you go to sleep in the truck? You said that you slept in the truck, right?
Right. After that, I drove for a while.
And then you slept in the truck, right?
I think I drove all the way to Hollister that night.
Okay, but at some point you slept in the truck at night, right?
Yes,
So it wasn't that night then?
I don't remember.
Could have been the next night?
Could have been the next night or the previous night.
Well, the previous night, there's only one night when you drive from Arizona to California. It's during the day, right?
I might have slept in the truck before arriving in Southern California. I don't
During the
know.
day you slept in the truck.
At night, I believe.
Well, no, it couldn't be at night because you told us that you got into Southern California at 6 o'clock in the evening or when the sun was going down.
Objection argumentative. She's also left Mesa twice.
Rephrase your question.
Right? This is the time that you actually left to go to California. You told us that you don't remember what time you left, but you got to California sometime in the evening or the afternoon when the sun was going down, right? Do you remember telling us that just now?
The sun was not going down. It was late afternoon.
Pardon?
The sun was not going down. It was late afternoon.
All right, late afternoon then makes it earlier in the day, right? Around 4.
Perhaps. I don't remember times.
So it was in the afternoon then, right?
Yes.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
And if you take off from Arizona to get to California in the afternoon, by necessity, you would have had to have left in the morning, right? Not the afternoon.
If I didn't stop to sleep, yes.
Right. And so you're saying to me now that when you left on that leg of the trip, you actually went to sleep somewhere, right?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's possible. I don't remember when I slept in the truck. I just know that I slept in the truck.
Okay. Do you normally, as you're driving, do you remember sleeping during the day on the first leg? Do you remember that?
I slept during the day and at night during parts of the trip. It was broken up over several days before I arrived in Wairika.
So and then you get to California, you talk to Mr. Searcy, and then you drive, right?
Yes.
And you're sure you get to Hollister that night, right? You're sure?
I know that I was in Hollister the night that long text message came through.
I understand that, but you're saying that you left in the morning, you get there about in the afternoon. I'm asking you whether or not you got to Hollister that night. That's what I'm asking you.
I believe I did.
Okay, so now you're in Hollister. You spend the night there, right?
Yes.
Right, and then what time do you get up?
I don't know.
Where is Hollister in relationship to Monterey?
Oh, I think about an hour.
And so then you get up the next day. Is that the day that you meet up with Mr. McCartney?
No, I saw Matt before going to my sister's.
So he was down around Hollister, is that correct?
Where was he? No, he wasn't by Hollister.
So then where do you meet up with him?
We met up at his house.
Well, he lives in Seaside, doesn't he?
No, he lived in either Monterey or Pacific Grove. It was right on the border.
And Seaside is near there, right?
Seaside. Yes, it is near there.
And so back then, he lived in the same general area. And where's Hollister in relationship to Monterey?
I would say, well, Hollister is kind of northeast, more inland.
So it's above Monterey, is that correct?
Yes.
So before you even got to Hollister, to your sister's house, that's when you met up with Mr. McCartney then, is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Where? Where did you meet up with him?
I stayed, I can't remember where I slept, but I remember going to Matt's and Daryl's that morning with my U-Haul truck.
What's that? No, I didn't hear you.
I can't remember where I slept, but I remember going to Matt's house and Daryl's house, his apartment, with my U-Haul truck.
And what time of the day was it that you ended up at their houses?
That was in the morning.
And so, would that have been... But I thought your sister lives in Hollister, which is north of the Monterey area.
That's correct.
So would you have seen them before you went to your sister's house?
I know I stopped there before I went to my sister's house.
So what time did you get to your sister's house?
I don't remember.
Well, was it light outside?
I think it was because we had dinner.
And so that would have been around 6, right?
Somewhere in that ballpark.
And where did you, before that, where did you meet these, what time did you meet these individuals in terms of time before that dinner time? How many hours before that?
It would have been the same day, but in the morning. I don't know the hours exactly.
So you met him in the morning. Who did you meet first, Mr. Brewer or Mr. McCartney?
Matt.
And where did you meet him?
At his house, the house he was living in.
And is this the house that he was living in with these other individuals, or is this a different?
Yes, same one.
And that's when, according to you, he saw the bruises, right?
Yes.
And did Mr. Brewer see the bruises too?
No, I put makeup on.
Well, didn't you also have makeup on with Mr. McCartney? Isn't that what you had on too?
I thought I did.
Well, the makeup hadn't changed from Mr. Brewer to Mr. McCartney, had it?
Yes, it did.
And why is that? I thought you saw him at the same time, or at
No.
or about the same time.
After I woke up, I went and saw Matt. Some of the makeup had worn off. He confronted me on it. Before going to see Daryl, I put more foundation on my arms and my neck.
So you had it on your arms. Where else?
My neck.
And, okay. Now, this individual, Mr. McCartney, he's somebody that you will believe will never betray you, right?
I've had that belief in the past, yes.
Well, you had that belief after the killing, didn't you?
In September, I did.
Well, let's
Not
take
so
a look.
much in June.
Let's take a look at, I'm going to have something marked as an exhibit. This is exhibit 475, which is our clip number 8. If I may play it.
was trying to call my friend that's in Monterey. He is a person that I usually tell everything to. He's somebody that would never betray me, and he's somebody that he's somebody I could tell anything to, and I thought maybe he could. I was never able to make the phone call and get a hold of him. So it would try to dial it, and then the bar would go away and call lost and things like that. So at that point, I remember pulling over again at the Hoover Dam, and I thought, I'm going to call Travis. And I was able to have cell phone reception there, and I tried calling him, and it just went to voicemail, and I called him again, and it went to voicemail.
You heard yourself in there talking about Mr. McCartney, right?
Yes,
And he's the first individual that you called when you were able to get, according to you, or find the charger so that you could use your telephone back on June 4th, or at that point, June 5th of 2008, right?
I don't know if he was the first, but I did try to call him.
And he's somebody that, according to what you said, would never betray you, right?
Yes,
And that's what you said when you conducted that interview, right?
that's right.
And that was after your arrest on July 15th of 2008, right?
Yes,
And he's the same individual that, according to you, had this affair or relationship with Bianca, right?
that's right.
But you had been friends throughout, correct?
Yes,
And he's somebody that, when push comes to shove, is not going to betray you, right?
that's my hope.
Well, that's not what you said on this exhibit number 475, and I moved that into evidence.
Objection.
No, I'm done now.
Councilor. $75 is admitted.
And when you say that he won't betray you, it means he'll stand by you no matter what, right?
That's not what I meant by that.
It's somebody that, if you need a favor, he's somebody that will help you out, right?
That would depend on the favor.
Pardon?
That would depend on the favor.
Mr. McCartney knows somebody, well, you also indicated with regard to him that it's just basically a friendship, right?
Yes,
But he's one of your allies, though, right?
yes.
This will be Exhibit 476. I want you to view this.
Just before you may admit before.
I move for the admission of Exhibit 476 based on a previous conversation.
476 is
Which
admitted.
note page does this refer to, Mr. Martinez?
Pardon?
Which note page is correlated with this?
6. It's been previously provided.
No objection.
476 is admitted.
Absolutely. Friendships for sure. And, you know, you had mentioned Matt, and he and I dated 8 years ago. And at this point, he's like a brother to me. And almost to the point where imagine being intimate with him or kissing him is it grosses me out, I think. And it doesn't mean that he's a bad person. He's amazing, but he's more like my brother now. And I'm grateful for the experiences we've had. And he taught me so much. And I think that's why he was meant to come into my life. Because at this point, he's one of my best allies, one of the best friends that I could ever ask for.
And this is the individual that you are telling us can corroborate the issue involving the injuries to the neck, right?
Objection, the burden shifting, Judge.
Overruled.
Yes.
Ma'am, the way you've been telling your story on direct examination, and I'll just pick an example, for example, the sex. The way you sort of narrate it is that, yeah, you went along with it, but, you know, it really wasn't sort of your cup of tea. It made you uncomfortable. Remember telling us that?
Yes, some things did.
And a lot of the things that you've told us in this case, including the murder, for example, you keep saying, well, yeah, happened, but what you're saying to us now, it's not my fault, right?
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, you did say, for example, that Mr. Alexander was the person who was very upset, right? And he was coming after you and left you no choice. Isn't that what you were saying?
That's how I felt in that moment.
But that's what you're telling us, that that's how you felt, right?
Yes.
Let me show you an exhibit that's already been introduced into evidence. This is exhibit number 245. That's you in position number 5, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's you smiling in position number 5, right?
Yes.
But you have a reason as to why you were smiling there, don't you?
Yes.
Let me have an exhibit marked so we can see what the reason is. I move for the admission of Exhibit 477.
No objection.
477 is admitted.
Judge, my screen is ready to go. I don't know. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
There is one thing I wanted to address, and that is my mugshot. And I think I did a little tilt on my head and gave a little smile. There's been a lot of attention given to that, especially on the internet. People speculating, why did I do that? How could she smile? I just want to address that because I think that people don't really understand. And there are a few reasons I did that, and one is one of my first thoughts when I was actually being booked. I was a little like, wow, I see this stuff on TV all the time. This is so interesting. It's almost just like it is on TV. And I thought to myself, you know, what would Travis do if he were in this situation? This is why I'm here. And you know, barring the fact that he would likely not get himself into such circumstances, he would be smiling. He would be like, hey, you know, he would just flash this grin that he always does. And so there was part of that, and then also part of the fact that I knew it would be all over the internet, so why not? And then there was also the fact that I know that I'm innocent, and even though this is a very serious thing to be charged with, there's no reason for me to be sad. because I know that I'm not, that I'd never hurt Travis. And there's no reason to be upset over this in my mind. Everything, I have faith that in the end, everything will be made known, everything will come out. And in the meantime, smile, say cheese.
Ma'am, with regard to this particular issue here, it's really not your fault, the way you explain it there, that you were smiling there.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
Well, you actually indicate that the reason you do it is Mr. Alexander, right?
That's one of the reasons.
Well, no, you didn't say that that's one of the reasons, but Mr. Alexander's dead at this time. He's not going to know about it, is he?
Well, I believe he would.
You think he's in this life now and knowing about this,
I
right?
didn't say that.
You made that decision yourself, didn't you?
Yes.
You didn't do it with the consultation of Mr. Alexander, right?
No.
Even though you say that's what he would have done, you have no way of knowing that that's what he would have done, that he would have smiled, do you?
I have a way of knowing, but it's more like speculation.
Right. You wouldn't know if that's what he would do or not, right?
Not for sure.
Objection, ask an answer.
Overruled.
So you just made that part up, didn't you?
I said that based on how I knew him.
And you did that to make yourself look better. In other words, you're saying, don't look this way, look over there.
Objection, argumentative. Compound question.
Sustained, rephrase.
You said it because you didn't want light to be focused on you for smiling.
That's correct.
And part of that conversation also that we had is that you said that you were innocent. You remember saying that?
Yes.
And previously on direct examination, when you were being asked about whether or not a jury would convict you, you said, well, the reason I said that was because I planned to be dead at the time, right?
That's right.
Not because you were innocent, right?
Not in that interview.
Well, actually, in that interview, you also said, I'm innocent. No jury will convict me. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, I did say that.
So it's the same thing that you're saying here, right?
Yes.
So it's not that you were going to commit suicide. It's because you truly believe that you didn't do anything wrong here, right?
I believed.
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
I believed, I knew that I was innocent of first-degree murder, and I did plan to be dead.
Did you say that you were innocent of first-degree murder?
No.
That changes, though, that you're saying you truly believe that you were innocent of first-degree murder. That changes from what you told us on direct examination, though, doesn't it?
Objection,
Nothing
argumentative.
changes.
Overruled.
Doesn't it?
Nothing changes.
Well, in direct examination, you told us that the reason that you said on that Inside Edition clip, do you want to look at it?
No.
On that Inside Edition clip, that no jury would convict you was because you felt that you were going to commit suicide, right?
The reason I said those things?
No. In court, you told us that the reason you uttered those words was because you were going to commit suicide before the matter went to trial, right?
Yes, I was certain of it.
But that's not really what you said. You said you were innocent, right?
Yes.
And so when you went up there and you told us that, that's just not the truth, is it?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
It is the truth. I'm innocent of that charge.
Or is it because the jury won't convict you because you will have committed suicide?
That was also the hope.
Now, the other thing, ma'am, is that in terms of the breakup with Mr. Alexander, that occurred at the end of June of 2007, correct?
Correct.
And what you indicated was that after the breakup, one of the things that happened is that rather than staying in Palm Desert, you moved to Arizona, right?
I lived in Big Sur, and I did move to Mesa.
Pardon?
I lived in Big Sur, not Palm Desert. I moved to Mesa.
How long did you stay in Big Sur?
Approximately 2 months.
And after being in Big Sur for approximately 2 months and being broken up with Mr. Alexander, you decided to move down to Mesa, right?
Yes.
It isn't a situation where Mr. Alexander is helping you financially, is it?
That month, it was.
Which month is that? I thought you were up there 2 months.
The month that I moved.
So he helped you the month that you moved, but you were really not dependent on him for support, were you?
I couldn't have moved without his financial
Well,
assistance.
is that my question to you, whether or not you could have moved here?
Objection, yes, it was.
Restate your question.
Ma'am, were you dependent on Mr. Alexander for your financial well-being?
In Big Sur, no.
And in Palm Desert, you weren't dependent on Mr. Alexander for your financial well-being there either, were you?
No.
You were working, I think you even said in Palm Desert, 2 or 3 jobs, right?
Yes.
And back up in Big Sur, you were working where? Ventana Lakes, is that where you were?
Ventana Inn and Spa and the Big Sur
Right.
Bakery.
You were getting paid, right?
Yes.
You didn't need Mr. Alexander to provide for you in any way, right?
No.
And you made the choice to come down to Mesa, Arizona, right?
Yes.
And you made the choice as to where you were going to move, right?
Yes.
And in fact, ma'am, you indicated that there was a reason why you chose to come out to Mesa, right?
Yes.
And in fact, you indicated that it was Mr. Alexander, and that he was the reason that you came here to Arizona, right?
Yes.
Let's see how you put it. Move for the admission of Exhibit 478.
A moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
No objection.
478 is admitted.
Tell me about choosing Mesa as a place to live. Why did you choose Mesa?
Well, the main reason was because of Travis. He was a very persuasive person, and we had discussed my moving there. It was a topic of conversation for a while. There came a point where we decided to break things off, and I sort of hesitated on my plans to move there. But again, he's very persuasive, so he convinced me that it might be a good idea if I did move there. So I went ahead with the move, and it was actually a pretty good decision, I think. I made a lot of friends. It's a great place where the church is strong, and there are a lot of really great wards there. I really enjoyed my time there. So.
Ma'am, in it you are telling us there that it was Mr. Alexander, and he's the reason why you moved here, right?
Yes.
And it also appears to say that, well, it was his fault that you came here. In other words,
Objection, that mischaracterizes her statement.
Rephrase.
in other words, you said, he is so persuasive, he convinced me that it might be a good idea if I did move here. That's what you said, right?
That's what I said.
He convinced you. That's what you said, right?
Yes.
Which means you didn't want to come, right?
Not after I found out how promiscuous he was.
Ma'am, am I asking you that? Isn't it true that you said that he convinced you that it might be a good idea. You're saying that he convinced you, right?
Yes.
Objection, asked and answered about 3 times now.
Sustained.
And that he was very persuasive, right?
He was.
And so what you're saying is it wasn't your fault.
Objection, argumentative, asked and answered again.
Overruled. You may answer that question.
What do you mean by fault?
What does fault mean to you?
Culpability.
Pardon?
Culpability.
Right. He was culpable. He's the reason why you're in Arizona.
I wouldn't characterize it that way.
Well, one of the things that seems to be a trend here is that you seem to be saying, well, I had no control over that decision. That's not true, right?
It was my decision.
That's right. And you were the one that decided to come out here, right?
Yes.
Even though you had broken up, right?
Yes.
Even though, at that point, there was no relationship between the two of you. At that point, right?
There was still some kind of relationship.
Telephone relationship, right?
Telephone and mail.
Right. So there was this sort of relationship, but you knew that you were broken up, right?
Yes.
I mean, you were the one that announced that on June 29th of 2007, you broke up with him, right?
That's correct.
And if you broke up with him, that means you had the, if you will, the wherewithal, the psychological wherewithal to say, no, I've had enough, right?
I could have.
Well, no, you did say that. You broke up with him on June 29th, didn't you?
Objection, mischaracterizes the testimony.
Regarding the breakup, yes, I had the wherewithal.
Right. And then, after that, you didn't move here to Arizona, right?
Not immediately.
No. The answer is no, right?
After the breakup, yes, I did move to Arizona.
Really? Immediately on June 30th of 2007, you moved to Arizona?
I said not immediately.
So you did move to Arizona on June 30th of 2007, right?
No.
You actually moved somewhere else to Big Sur.
No,
Right.
I was already in Big Sur for almost 2 months at that point.
Okay. So when did you come out here to Arizona if you were already up there for 2 months?
It would have been right before his birthday,
So when is his birthday?
July 28th.
So you came out here less or approximately 1 month after you broke up, right?
I came out here before that, but that's when I moved out here.
Okay, so you came out before, but you actually moved down here approximately 1 month after you broke up, right?
Yes.
And even though you guys are broken up, you moved to an area that's pretty close to him, right?
Yes.
And in fact, as this thing progresses, you even moved to another home that's even closer to him, right?
That's right.
Even though that you're broken up, right?
Yes.
Even though you say that there were these trust issues, right?
Yes.
Ma'am, one of the other individuals in your life was an individual by the name of Bobby Juarez. Do you remember him?
Yes.
And you indicated that you met him and then at a carnival, right?
The county fair.
County fair?
Yes.
Right. There were rides, that sort of thing there, right?
Yes.
And then after some time, you guys sort of just met, but you didn't see him after that until you saw him at a football game, right?
That's right.
And you said, well, I'm not very aggressive, but I really went up to him and I introduced myself, right?
I didn't introduce myself. I just asked if he remembered me.
Well, you went up to talk to him. How about that?
Yes, him and some mutual friends.
Yeah, is that yes?
Yes.
So even though you say you're not real aggressive, you approached him. He did not approach you, right?
That's right.
And with Mr. Alexander, even though you're in Big Sur less than a month or approximately a month after you break up, you make the decision to come here, right?
Yes.
So you have the ability to be, if you will, a person who can make whatever decisions are necessary for yourself, right?
Yes.
Even from the time that you were younger, it appears that you were, for example, assertive enough to go up to Mr. Juarez and say, do you remember me, right?
Yes.
And he said he did remember you, right?
Yes.
And you introduced yourself, right?
Yes.
And he introduced himself, right?
I already knew him.
So you knew his name, he didn't, you introduced yourself, right? Said, do you remember me? My name is so-and-so. Something like that is the way you told him,
Something to
right?
that effect.
Right. And so after that, you and he start to have a relationship, right?
A friendship,
But at some point you become boyfriend and girlfriend, right?
yes.
And that boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, how long did it last before you broke up?
We broke up several times.
No, the first time. The first time that you broke up. That's what I'm asking about.
I would say 5 months.
And after you broke up with him, or you broke up with him, right?
Yes.
And after you broke up with him, on September 23rd of 1997, you were working somewhere, weren't you?
97, yes.
Where were you working?
97. I think I was working at, I was in Wairika, but I don't remember which restaurant. I had several restaurant jobs during that time in high school.
Well, you remember that you talked to us about September 23rd of 1997 and the restaurant that you were working at when you were on direct examination. Do you remember telling us that?
I think I said the Purple Plum.
But you're having trouble remembering that today, right?
September 23rd, 97, yes.
No, the restaurant that you were working at.
On that date, yes.
Yes, even though you told us what restaurant it was before, when you...
Overruled, you may answer.
I don't know.
You don't remember telling us what restaurant you worked at?
Not on that particular date.
How about, all right, how about a week before that date? Do you remember where you were working?
I was working at my dad's restaurant if it wasn't closed yet. If it was closed, I was at the Purple Plum or Grandma's house.
Do you remember that you told us that during this period of time, shortly before this September 23rd of 1997, that you were a server and an old individual, an old man came into the restaurant? Do you remember telling us that?
Yes,
Are you having trouble remembering that, or the way you said
I
it?
remember that incident.
Yes, you do remember that?
Yes,
And he used to come in, and according to you, he had a dog-eared Bible. Do you remember telling us that?
yeah, it was a pocket size. New
Pocket
Testament.
size, right. And you remember that he talked to you about some of the scriptures and some of the verses inside that Bible, right?
I remember that.
And according to him, as you told it to us, the end of the world, pursuant to his calculations after reading the Bible, was September 23rd, 1997, right?
Yes,
And one of the things that immediately popped in your mind was that, well, Bobby, you thought about Bobby at that time, right?
not immediately, but very soon after that.
Right. And one of the things that you told us was that he was not very religious, right?
Yes,
So why would he care to hear from you if some old guy is talking to you about the end of the world? Why do you think he would even care?
it felt like it was a moral responsibility.
Yes, you say that you feel it was a moral responsibility, but given what your relationship was, and he wasn't religious, why would you think that he would care?
My fear was that he wouldn't care.
Well, and so what, how is that relevant to you? How is that important to you since you're not even dating the guy? Why would you even care?
I cared about his eternal salvation.
Did you also go to your parents and say, Mom, Dad, I care about your salvation? Did you also go to talk to them too?
Ken had already talked to them.
Pardon?
Ken had already talked to them about
The
that.
bottom line is, did you go to them to talk to them to make sure they got the message?
It would have been redundant, so no.
Ma'am, the answer is yes or no. Did you go to them or not?
Objection, asked and answered, sir. He said no.
Sustained.
So you didn't go to them, right?
No.
And did you go to anybody? You were still in high school at the time, right?
Yes.
You didn't go to anybody else in high school with this message, did you?
I talked about it.
You didn't go to them with the message the way that you approached Bobby, though, did you?
Asked and answered.
Overruled.
Well, since Bobby and I weren't talking, I guess that would be correct.
Right, because, and let's say, for example, if the people that you went to talk to at your school, high school, said, hey, I don't want to talk about it, you'd leave them alone, right?
Objection calls for speculation. What she did 15, 20 years ago,
Oh,
what she would have done.
Overruled.
I guess so.
Pardon?
I guess so.
Well, no, you were the person back then, and you knew how you were, right?
Yes.
And you wouldn't have. If they'd have told you, leave me alone, you'd have left them alone, right?
Yes.
Well, but you treated Bobby differently. didn't you?
No,
Well, isn't it true that you picked up the phone to let him know about this impending doomsday and called him, didn't you?
that's the reason I called him.
Right, you did call him, correct?
Yes,
And you called him, and he answered the telephone, right?
yes,
And you identified yourself, didn't you?
no.
Well, you spoke, didn't you?
Oh, I did identify myself, I'm sorry. Yes,
And he knew who you were because you identified yourself, right?
yes. The first night,
Ma'am, is that yes? You did identify yourself,
I
right?
said yes.
And he hung up on you, didn't he?
Yes,
And according to you, the reason you were calling was because, well, it was the end of the world, right?
no, not
Well,
yet.
didn't you tell us that the reason you were calling him was because September 23rd of 1997 was impending and you wanted to let him know?
Yes,
So after that first call, he didn't call you back, did he?
no.
But you persisted, didn't you?
I called the next night.
The answer is you continued to call, right?
One more time, yes.
Right. And you called the next night again, right?
Yes,
Didn't you get the message when he hung up on you the first night that he didn't want to talk to you?
Objection, argumentative.
I got that impression.
If somebody hangs up on you, isn't that a clear message to you that they don't want to talk to you? More
Not
than an impression?
necessarily.
Pardon?
Not necessarily.
So if somebody hangs up to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to talk to you?
No.
Well, what other reason would they be hanging up on you if they don't, other than that they don't want to talk to you?
It could be accidental, it could be a malfunction of the phone, it could be anything without explanation, I wouldn't know.
Okay, so that's, all right. But then you call them, why didn't you, if you thought that that was the problem that first night, why didn't you just call them right away? Why didn't you just pick up the phone and call them right away? To make sure that it wasn't a mechanical malfunction. Why didn't you do that?
I think I was kind of shy.
You think you were kind of shy, but that didn't stop you from calling the next day, right?
It took that long to work up the courage
Ma'am,
again.
it didn't, the shyness that you professed did not stop you from calling the next day, right?
Objection, ask and answer, she just explained that.
Sustained.
And this shyness that you professed didn't stop you from going up to him in a football game and introducing yourself to him, right?
Objection, ask and answer.
Sustained.
Now, you then do call him the next day, right?
Yes.
What time of the day was it?
I don't recall. It would have been after school, I think.
Would it be after work too, or not?
Objection, ask and answer.
Overruled.
I usually wasn't scheduled on school days.
Okay, and so you call him and you dial his number and you get him again, right?
Yes.
He answers the phone, right?
Yes.
And after he answers the phone, you identify yourself again, right?
This time I didn't.
Did you say something?
Yes.
So you didn't identify yourself, but your voice came through the wire line, right?
Yes.
And immediately, upon hearing your voice, he hung up on you again, didn't he?
That's right.
Didn't say a word to you, did he?
No.
Well, ma'am, with regard to that, you didn't really? Then he calls you back though, right?
A few days later, yes.
Yeah. And he calls you back and you begin to talk, right?
Yes.
And it really isn't your fault. You can't take no responsibility for it that he actually called you back, can you? Or that the friendship was rekindled, right? Because he called you back, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
I don't know what you mean by fault.
Well, responsibility. How about that? Weren't you the one that was actually responsible for him calling you back?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. I don't know why he called back.
Sustained.
Ma'am, he hadn't called you back, or he hadn't called you before those 2 telephone calls, had he?
No.
He only called you back after those 2 telephone calls, right?
Yes.
And according to you, the reason for that was because you thought it was the end of the world, right?
Yes.
And so then you again start this relationship with Mr. Juarez, right?
What was that question?
You start this relationship with Bobby again, right?
Yes.
And at first you're friends again, right?
Yes.
And you stay friends until it becomes more than that, right?
Yes,
Sure. At some point, you even moved in with him, didn't you?
yes,
And this is during the time that you are what, a senior in high school?
junior,
Is this shortly before you dropped out or not?
shortly before I dropped out.
Right. And according to you, you were in school and you had a history test, right?
Yes,
And the way you told it is that you were very studious. You were studying for this history test, weren't you?
I
In the
wasn't
car.
very studious, but I was studying.
Right. You were studying at a time where you had to be somewhere else, right?
Yes,
And your father caught you, right?
yes,
Well, the reason you were studying at a time that you should have been in school was because you hadn't prepared for whatever reason to be ready to take this test, right?
that's right.
But that's your fault that you weren't prepared, right?
Yes,
But the way you made it sound when your father grounded you was that he was being mean to you, the way you presented it as part of your childhood.
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Were you happy the fact that he grounded you for 3 months?
happy? No.
You're pretty unhappy about it, weren't you?
I was stunned.
Pardon?
I was stunned.
Stunned. So just because you were stunned, you decided to move out, right?
That was not the main reason. That was just the last straw.
Well, do you remember telling us that once he grounded you for 3 months, you said it on direct, that was the reason why you decided to move out, right?
Yes, that was the last straw.
That's the reason then, right?
Objection, mischaracterizes her testimony.
Overruled, you may answer.
Right?
What was the question?
The reason that you moved out was because your father grounded you for 3 months, right?
That was one of the reasons.
And then you moved in with Mr. Juarez, right?
That's right.
And the way you present this, it's like you never seem to take responsibility, man.
Objection, argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take the evening recess at this time. Please be back in the designated area at 10:25, which would be the jury room. Please remember the admonition. Have a nice evening. You are excused. Please be seated. The record will show the jury has left the courtroom. Ms. Arias, you may step down. Counsel, please approach. We are in recess.